Everybody win. Okay. If possible, I would like to open the October 21st hearing of the Bolton Conservation Commission. And we will start with a roll call. Brian Barabee.
Jim Stone.
Liz Lecluse.
Maria Berman. Karen Aberto.
Excellent. First on the agenda this evening was the DPW were coming in to discuss Long Hill and Meadow Road notice of intent. However, have they asked?
Right, so they have requested to continue the hearing to the first meeting in December, which would be December 2nd.
So if we open the DPW's notice of intent hearing, they've asked to move it to December 2nd, so we will move DPW's request on notice of intent for Long Hill and Meadow Roads to our December 2nd meeting at 7 o'clock. Should we do one first? Excellent. Next up at 7:15 was Broomfield at 164 Still River Road, continuing public hearing on their notice of intent. Do we have an update from Broomfield?
Well, you do. We can't open that one technically until 7:15, but they are also going to request to continue. So
okay.
We actually have a 45-minute gap. So I invited Senator Mill to fill that gap when I was out with them.
That makes good sense. So then can we officially move Broomfield, or do we have to wait?
We should do it after. We should come back to it.
We will come back to it then. All right. So next up would be Century Mill Estates, Spectacle Hill Road.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello again.
So we've got some new people that know about everything.
Okay, yeah. If possible, would you mind introducing yourself?
Any more space to bring?
No, we're good, Joe. Thank you.
Oh, actually, I'm going to Brendan up here. He's got the
He's the
man.
man, absolutely. Alan Shockett, attorney for Century Mill Estates.
Brandon Ducharme, Dillis.
Andrew Benditson, Century Mill.
Okay.
So Carol, is there another meeting at 8 o'clock with these folks too?
This was just an appointment, so it's not a hearing, so we can
Okay.
change it
Take
around.
it
It was just an
okay.
appointed time, and then since we had the space, yeah. But Mickey Marcus is here, who's going to hope to talk to us around 8 o'clock on, or at least be participating or hearing our participation about Vickery around there. So I hadn't assigned that a time on the agenda
I see.
initially.
Okay.
All right.
So one issue to be addressed tonight is the winter button-up on Road A.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think, give you an update. We were here a couple weeks ago, and we were tasked with, not tasked, but basically we were informed that as of end of day tomorrow, we would stop work at the crossing, have things stabilized, which that's what we were supposed to do, and we did that. So this is what the crossing looks like now. We're at the point of being able to gravel. It's nice and neat, as you can see. Carol was out there today.
Jim?
And the oars are all on. This is the east side, I call it. It's both sides of the crossing.
Yeah, so as you're approaching the crossing.
Well, this is coming from inside the subdivision.
Oh, okay.
This-
Oh, that's the backside.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Is it the
But-
upstream or the downstream?
This is the upstream side. So all of the oars and slopes have been shaped. They've all been loamed. They've all been seeded with winter ride, which will come up very quickly for stabilization. And they've been hayed, and then the mat's been put down. So they're very nice and neat and buttoned up for the winter. This is other pictures of that side. That's really the That side has much more. The other side of the street, this is the largest area. We ran out of mat, but we'll put it down tomorrow. It's been shaped, loamed, seeded, and hay. Carol, that's...
So that's adjacent to the replication area, that's where we
No,
want-
that's, this is the detention basin behind it.
Oh, that's, okay.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's done. Okay? And then we did run out, Carol, and get that
The cover.
cover. So there's a little small area
Should be.
Yeah.
that we wanted to raise up the structure because it's on there's a hill here, and we raised it up with brick to make the slope a little more gentle. So tomorrow that will, Carol, can we do that tomorrow? Well, yeah, tomorrow I have.
Well, that was a discussion I had with Andy,
Okay.
and it's a discussion for you guys, but I had said to him in the field that I thought he was working up until today, that it was, the votes last week were, an extension to October 22nd. He anticipated he had through the October 22nd, so.
I'm pretty sure, I remember that.
I mean, can everything get done tomorrow?
Yeah, this is really the last,
Yeah.
this is not a big area, this is probably 200 square feet.
I know that we referred to October 22nd. I don't think we specified that it was, midnight 01 on the 22nd. So certainly one can interpret that as the entire day.
Well, it just makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
It's a little bit,
The motion said, which you'll see in your minutes, was to October 22nd. So when I was there, I interpreted that as you were to be finished, so when you came in today, you would say you were finished, and there wasn't going to be any further work that the commission was reviewing. That's how I had interpreted.
actually,
No, that was saying how I interpreted.
Well, it's kind of how I said it too, is that I remember I'm the one who's proposed the 22nd, and I said that's in case you need to get anything done on the 21st. I said, if we said the 22nd, I'll give you all day on the 21st without anybody having to pick nits about when the 21st starts. But that said, I don't know, I mean, we can talk about when the 22nd starts, but if everything's going to be done by the end of tomorrow, I don't know.
Yeah, well, let them continue with where they are.
Yeah, please,
so
yeah.
this is really the only area to shape and this is a very small area. It's maybe, I'm gonna guess 20 by 30 feet.
That's a small area on the downstream side.
Yeah, remember we were looking at it and we went out and got the cover and we actually also bricked it to raise it up to make it a more gentle slope. So the only thing we have to do is just put some dirt right there. It's really very minor. So that's the crossing, I think. The
So-
application's done and the plantings, we have the
Yeah.
plants here.
You didn't get to that, then. Didn't get to
No,
that.
I'd like to put them in.
Oh, that's crossing A though,
I
right?
mean, this
No, that's
is-
crossing
Road-
C.
That's C, all right.
Yeah, this is just
All right.
handwork.
So where it shows you the jute netting and stuff, those are the ORA's areas, and so they would, Brandon can say, because when we met last time, we talked about probably needing something in addition to just the winter rye in case the weather didn't allow it to pop up and it was past the growing season. And so Andy got a couple of samples from Shemin Nursery, I guess,
Yeah.
and had talked to Brandon about it, I believe, about whether
Brandon, GCG, and Shemmons.
yeah, and whether, there's a typical,
Jute net.
well, the jute netting, there was more like a rope, like material that looks like it would probably biodegrade at some point in time. And then the other one was, I'm not remembering whether it was plasticky or...
Kessel, I forget the name of it.
But anyway, they went with the rope type jute netting. And so then it's stapled in the ground to hold it in place with kind of wired, big, 4-inch staples or something. So that was just one of the questions is, and then so what was explained to me is that they have to cut, around the netting so that they can put the plants in, cut enough of the root, for the root balls to go in. So that section, would be disturbed, but they also have this straw, right, not hay, on top of the seed.
I mean, the netting has holes in it anyway.
Yeah, like maybe 3 by 3 or something like that, 2 by 3, 3 by 3, I can't remember. It's not 2, it's probably bigger than 2 by 2, I think it's big enough like that. So one question just later, just to throw out there, is whether, and I don't know what the preference is, or if anybody knows, is whether those metal stakes should come out when everything stabilizes. Andy thought possibly in the spring that they would take the netting out, but I don't know whether that's a typical thing or not.
The netting stays, I think.
Yeah, but I didn't know about this,
Biodegradable.
the
Yeah.
metal
Staples.
staples.
don't.
Yeah.
you can't
We've
take
always
them out.
taken it out.
Yeah, you take them out.
Okay, well,
Okay, so
even
they
the
will
netting,
take them out.
Once
Yeah.
everything's growing,
Yeah,
it just comes off.
the roots should stabilize the
Yeah.
shell. But I don't know if it's in the spring or might be a little.
Well, once everything's growing.
But so you're saying staples come out, but the jute netting stays?
Yeah.
We've always taken it out. Both. So,
So the planting's all handwork, you said, right?
yeah.
How many plants?
There's about 350.
And how long is that gonna take?
One thing.
You feel confident in it?
Yes.
How many people are working on it?
8.
8? Your
They're just,
gallon.
they're just small, you know.
You have the picture, right?
Yeah.
Some are big than others, like this. The beech trees were sizable, I don't know if they were a gallon or not.
They're potted, you know, they're all in pots and you just carry them over, put it over.
I mean, there were some ferns that I saw,
Yes.
sensitive fern.
Yeah. Oh,
They were smaller pots, so some of them was not that large a pot. Yeah, there were a lot of oaks. At least on the plants. I probably didn't see all the plants. I didn't see 350 of them.
Yeah, they're bare,
Yeah.
yeah. I know it doesn't look like it, but we count them. Yeah, it's really minor work to put in a, well, I'm sure you've all done a little gardening.
Oh, yeah.
Right, I mean, to plant like a plant that's this big, it's not very long.
Except for I hit ledge.
What's
No
that?
matter where I plant anything, I hit ledge.
We won't hit
Yeah,
ledge,
I know,
because this
I
is
know.
all
It's-
been
I
built
know.
up and it's fresh loam.
I put in about 75 bulbs earlier this week, I'm done.
How long did it take you?
Too long.
Yeah. But, so,
We feel-
this is in really good shape.
So Carol, what did you think when you went there this morning?
Yeah, we went at 1. Jim was there this morning as well, I guess, because he
Yeah.
did a walk up there, but.
I didn't think we were going
we-
to go there till tomorrow.
Yeah, and yeah, it was coming together pretty well. You know, they were, at the time I was there, they were working on getting the jute netting down, getting it stapled. We had the discussion about the manhole cover, you know, whether, how they were gonna finalize that, and whether they would be able to get that done. So, and then I think I saw, did you put the check dams in at the bottom at this point then? Or were you still waiting for the new hay bales to come in? We talked about that today.
Oh, no, you mean down, no, I.
Oh, I was just looking at those hay bales.
No,
That's
I
what I
did-
was looking at.
This is just for the storm coming up.
Okay.
Got
So
it.
we talked about at the wetland level, where the culvert goes across, those hay bales and silt fence, I'd like to have them remove those so that the flow, you know, is able to be unimpeded through the winter. And the culvert itself, the bottom of the culvert doesn't have any, it's just dirt, or, and there's no stone or anything like that. And I think it's intended to eventually sort of match the existing conditions, you know, where it's, so animals can move back and forth through it, and it's not like all rip-wrapped underneath it or anything. So at the base of each of those slopes, in the Aura areas, approaching the culvert, so parallel to the culvert and parallel to the wetland, but I think we probably need some check dams of hay bales. That it may not be needed, but the slopes on some of the areas are steep enough, and until it really gets stabilized, I just thought it was a good precaution. So that would be
It's
something
really
that
minor.
needs to still be done. But again, that's not machine work or anything. So I think other than the grading and around that manhole and loaming it, that's the only machine work, and that's probably an hour's work or something.
Yep.
there's, if you can see in the pictures, so there's still raising in between the walls. All the walls are in, but they're still raising the fill inside of that area. And laying, I think the water line the sleeves had not been laid yet.
I don't know, it might be in, I don't even know.
Well, they were unloading the water lines when we were there, so again, I'm
I don't-
not sure how far they got with that or not.
I don't know. But that's not even, it's about 300 feet of water line, it's plastic pipe, just goes.
Yeah, so, but I guess I kind of, since it's not tied to the drainage so much, I kind of envision that more like them getting the road ready for paving, you know, that they're gonna lay that utility line in, you know, finish up the gravel work and then get it ready for paving. So I think it's still confined, you know, there's nothing other than that grading. So, I mean, it looked like it was coming along good. You know, they have to get the jute netting in the backside as well. You know, and it's supposed to rain, so I guess I would say that needs to be done, you know,
Yeah, we just ran out, would have been done.
first thing tomorrow morning.
Yep. The hay's down.
So you think by this time tomorrow you'll be done?
Yep.
You just need 24 more hours?
Yeah,
As far
there's
as,
not much left.
as far as construction season, just to kind of bring it to the realm, I mean, most other projects are still off and running. I mean, we're really not even coming in the end of, you know, where you're panicking to get stuff buttoned up.
Well, only
so
because
as
it was
far
supposed to be
as-
done October 1st.
Correct, and I understand, you know, that time frame is in there, but looking at, you know, it's in everybody's best interest to get this site finished and stabilized. You know, we're not talking about, you know, starting new projects, you know, that are gonna carry on. Really, he's about 90% there, if not more. I mean, let's button it up. Once we get that winter ride down, there's still plenty of time, and the days are still warm enough that should come up and stabilize.
In the work that we have is also, you know, it's confined in between solid walls. Can't, no.
Yeah, I tend to find out.
But this is our, this is at gravel. This is ready for gravel. The design of the road, actually, the sides, which is not, you know, where the grass will be, it's actually a little bit higher than the pavement. We said we would have the road, we could, you know, where we were supposed to be on the road itself. But,
Is there sidewalk on that?
yeah,
On the crossing part too, that goes over?
yes, that's why it's a little bit higher, you know, there's a curb, and then, but again, it's in between the walls, so it's,
And you probably have guardrails too, right?
yeah. We do.
So I would say, you know, they need to get the jute netting on the backside and get that stabilized, get the check dams in and finish the grading on the downward side. But I don't think that's more than a couple of hours' work if he's got everybody focused on it.
It isn't.
And then the planting, you know, I don't really have an idea how long it takes.
I mean, like you said, when you were out there today, we were,
Right, you hadn't finished grading that backside and that's all done.
it's,
Be interesting to hear again what everybody else says, but I tend to follow along that same thing. That the way the conditions are now, and it's so close to being done, that just let's get it done at this point.
it's a day.
Yeah, and it's picking nits over what the 22nd meant. Who really cares? Let's say it's, you know, the end of the day tomorrow, so I don't think we have to make a motion to extend anything at all, right? We can keep it working under
Yeah.
the extension we passed last time, unless we want to argue when the end of the day was, which we can. But again, it seems like it's so close to being done. I would say let's just let them finish it out for now.
You said that 2 weeks ago.
No, I know. Well, it was, you know, it was supposed to be done by
I mean,
night.
if it's just one more day, I think that's fine.
I agree with you,
My
Brian.
concern is that it's not just one day, but.
I think it's going exactly the way it
Sounds
should.
reasonable that one day.
I think it's one day over on North Sea there. I think the problem is that it's going to be bad weather, so, you know.
Yeah, so my
it's
issue,
hoping
I mean,
that-
again, we can argue over time frame that should be done, but
Yeah.
I'd say give it a week, because, I mean, we're talking about a limited amount of work that needs to be done. I mean,
Yeah.
Well,
what's the
he's
difference
already-
of whether that gets done
He's already
tomorrow or
had
gets
3
done on
weeks,
Friday?
So,
The construction schedule that was submitted, you know, that everything was going to be done by October 1st. We went with that. Nobody came in and asked for any extensions. You know, we said, you know, work was supposed to stop. You know, we'll give you another week to come in, October 7th. So I get your point.
I understand,
I
but,
think-
you know, as being a commissioner, you know, basically, we're here to analyze whether or not the work is going to cause harm to the wetland resource area. And that's what all we're saying is, you know, whether it gets, as long as it gets done this week, and I'd rather, as a consultant, I'd rather see the work get done on a day that's drier than trying to finish it in one day on a rainy day. You know, and just get the work done. I mean, give it a week, and it's certainly only going to improve the situation.
Which work are you concerned about doing in the rain?
Just to loam in around that area. I mean, loam and seed, you know, in there, you may as well wait and spread loam when it's a dry day.
Well, the heavy rain's not supposed to come until tomorrow night. So if he has a, you know, somewhat damp day tomorrow, but not heavy rain, it sounds like he could do that work tomorrow.
Yeah, it can. It's very minor. I mean, it's really
Certainly the best case for everyone is he gets it in tomorrow and we're done for the season, in the wet.
I mean, the handwork with the plantings, it's just handwork. I mean, we didn't even say that had to be done today.
And that's usually good to plant in the rain. It's easier sometimes to do that.
Well,
A light rain, it's okay.
Unless you're sinking in the,
Yes, well, that would be a problem.
but it should be, I mean, it shouldn't be that soft, but you know, how it can be, depending on how much rain you get. What?
You don't have to water it after.
No.
Oh, drizzle's good.
I mean, we,
Downpours.
there's very little work left. You know, so.
So what is the question before our commission?
Well, we still have some other work that we didn't really get information on. And again, my interpretation was that had asked, or the board had asked to get plans submitted, particularly for Road A, where you wanted to know and what the process was going to be to open up the stream again, since that work didn't get completed, and only started, you know, minimally by having removed the vegetation and stuff. And also, yeah, and so I guess what I told Andy today is I had understood that you guys wanted to have some input on it, and you wanted that completed by today.
Yeah, I think that's what we said at the last meeting.
I agree that that's what was said, looking at the minutes again. So anyway, we didn't get one.
Well, we have it here, and again, this work can be done tomorrow too. We did fill in the trench. There was a, Jim knows because he's been out there, there was a trench that was dug because the water line goes underneath the culvert. So we had dug a trench to put in the water line. Of course, we didn't dig it actually. It's solid ledge, this area. So it was hammered out of solid ledge. Just to give you an idea. That may look like dirt in the picture, but this is rock.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to walk around in the dark.
Right, yeah, so anyway, at the last meeting, what we were supposed to get done by tomorrow, that was my understanding, so I'll just keep saying it that way, but was to have the trench filled in. The trench has been filled in, and button up the crossing. And this is Brandon's plan. You
Yeah,
can
so
explain it, and we can get it done tomorrow.
Regardless to the deadlines, I guess what I'll do is just kind of go over what's there and what needs to happen, because if you don't do anything and just say the time's up, it's probably not the best situation out there. As you can see on this plan, or this picture here, this is basically looking down from the intermittent stream as it flows. And basically the stream's coming down, there's this trench right now that would just intercept the stream, and basically this long trench would just fill up with water until it kind of overtops this road, which is acting as a dam.
That's been filled in.
It's been filled in, but you know, as of yesterday, and then this is kind of looking at the other side here. This is the road here. These are the hay bales that are around the existing intermittent stream. And again, it's just another picture that's looking across. So really, the intermittent stream's not flowing now, but you know, if work was to stop and we're going to go through the winter, I mean, obviously at some point it's going to start flowing again. So we've got to figure out a way to make sure that all this water is directed not only across the road, but into the existing intermittent stream channel, so it can continue to provide all the hydrology to the wetland that's down the stream. So what we did, and basically, the challenge in looking at this is the fact that it's all solid ledge right now. So kind of what we came up with in order to do this, this is the existing road as you're looking at it here. This is the flow path that's kind of coming through. This here is the picture of the hay bales right here. And what we're proposing to do is basically bring riprap in along, this is inside the limit of work, bring riprap in from the intermittent stream channel down to a little low area down here, at which point there'll be two 12-inch pipes that are going to pick up that flow after a little, settling sump area. But again, this is clean water coming out of the existing wetland. It's going to come down riprap, go through this pipe, and basically just direct it right back into the existing channel. And the way to construct that is, they're going to have to essentially hammer out this ledge here, and this is kind of a cross section of what that looks like. Once you hammer out that ledge, you're going to lay the two pipes right through here. They're going to backfill over, and just, again, as a protective thing, we'll just put a steel plate over the, and then that'll allow that water, that drainage to pass through all winter.
What was the size of the pipe, the culvert itself that's proposed?
These are two 12-inch pipes.
No, I know, but the culvert for the road crossing.
So based on stream crossing standards, that's like a 8-foot diameter culvert. It's a large culvert.
So I guess I just don't know that the two 12-inch are going to handle the capacity. I don't know. I don't remember any of the the flows and stuff.
Our sense is, and again, this is kind of, we have not calculated the hydraulics of it. We did not run the 100-year storm event to see if to size these pipes. But looking at the rough watershed area, there's an existing vernal pool that's kind of up in this area, and just kind of historically seeing that stream when it's running, we're comfortable with two pipes. Essentially we said it should be about a 12-inch pipe. You add the redundancy, you make it two pipes. So
What happens if it exceeds that?
it will jump the road.
And this is for this winter, right?
Yeah, so
Well, it's
replaced-
in July 1.
So to answer your question,
by the culvert.
if this was a road, that's unacceptable because you gotta drive through.
Right.
But as far as if it was in the winter and it overtopped, it's gonna carry through. There's erosion control, down gradient, so it's basically gonna overtop, it's gonna go down, it's gonna hit the erosion control and make its way into the wetland.
Do you think it needs, you don't think it needs any other riprap at the outlet area?
Well, and we went back and forth on that, and the idea is, we're trying to.
Leave that as
this is the-
natural as
as
possible.
natural as possible. But if you guys were like, we really want to see something, I'd either do riprap, or I'd even just put down filter fabric and just put, some rocks on it, and at least.
Yeah, that might be better.
But, I was looking at it and saying, this is the existing stream channel, and basically, we're not concentrating that flow any tighter than what's going through there now, so it's basically gonna function, as much as our inclination is always to say, oh, let's riprap it, let's do this. I mean, that's how it's been flowing through there, historically, so.
And when you put the culvert in, you're still not gonna change this, are you?
No, it's not like,
So why
you worry
change it
about
now?
that, right.
Well, it's just, it doesn't overtop its banks when it's in the culvert, so it is, to some degree, it's channelized, which I don't know, I don't remember observing it that often myself, so I
You
can't
could
say.
shorten the pipe, I guess, right? It's in between ledge. And then have riprap.
Yeah.
You want it in the stone.
Yeah.
If you
So
wanted
do you need to
slow
hammer
it
out
down.
on both sides, though, then, for setting the pipe? I mean, I'm not quite sure. So you're setting the pipe on grade?
What we're gonna do, and it's easiest to see on here, I mean, they're gonna hammer it out like this. It's about, as shown, and this is probably gonna be about 3 or 4 feet.
So the whole thing under the road?
Correct. Basically, this section of road is gonna get hammered, the trough's gonna get hammered about 3 to 4 feet wide. Then they're gonna lay the pipes right in the bottom, and then backfill over it.
So my recollection of the water line trench is it took forever for you to hammer
Well,
that out.
that was like 10 feet deep. This is only.
It's 10 feet deep, and it was probably about, 40 feet long.
So what's the depth and what's the length?
So this is probably about, well, this is a 20-foot section of pipe, but the existing is probably like 12 feet, 15 feet wide here, and we're looking to go down 2 feet.
How long do you think this is gonna take?
Well, again, we designed, but Andy seemed to think that, you know,
I think we could
he
just
said
sit down tomorrow.
a few hours, so let's say a half day to hammer that out. And then you place the culverts, and it's a day job.
You have the pipes? I mean, they're just
They're right over
PVC
there.
pipes.
Interesting. Again, I'd be interested to see
Do
what,
you
how,
have a copy?
how everybody else feels. But I'd somewhat be inclined to try to extend them out again, to give them a few extra days, just because I don't want to be too rushed. It's the only thing.
So the steel plate, what's the purpose of the steel plate?
Just because it's a temporary culvert in nature, we're using plastic pipe. So the steel plate basically is gonna protect any vehicle loads from going over it instead of, basically it's the alternative of coming in with, you know, finished concrete piping.
So do you think that 2 feet down, the steel plate's sufficient?
Correct. Yeah, well,
You do?
well, for two
For, I mean,
reasons.
I'm thinking of what his equipment is.
Yeah, so for two reasons. Also knowing, in a regular circumstance, yes, more so in this because the steel plate is basically gonna overlap and sit on ledge.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
So one of the things we're a little curious about is, all right, so you're cutting this channel in the rock, and you're putting the steel pipe across that gap. What do you need the pipe for?
What's the pipe for?
Yeah.
Oh, to carry the water through.
No,
So the alternative, like even Andy suggested that, could we just hammer it out and just let it go
put a steel
through?
plate over the top, yeah.
You know, it's just more area depending on what that surface, if it's washed clean and there's no sediment or anything in it, you could do that, plate over the top. You know, you could.
That's not a standard practice.
No,
No.
no.
And that wouldn't pass any kind of official building.
Well, this is just temporary, so it's not for any vehicles, I guess, other than your construction vehicles and or emergency vehicles.
But if it doesn't have the fill, is there enough support if you have the metal plate and you have these huge vehicles going through?
Yeah, I don't know, he's saying that the ledge is sufficient support.
Oh, yeah. It's
But
very
the answer to
small.
his question is, yeah, I think the pipes is a better solution than just hammering out a channel.
Doesn't matter with me. Either way.
Just a layman's question.
Yeah.
So what are the elevations for them? Are they provided?
No, I mean, basically, I mean, this is, you know, we took a look at it, we kind of did it, you know, we don't have survey in this area to kind of know what the elevations are at presently of the road or anything like that. But basically what we're working off of, because is you're working it back, this pipe here, the way we want it, by hammering this down, is we want the invert of the pipe to be about exactly at the ground surface where the water's gonna come out of the exit of the pipe, because any higher than that is just gonna have a potential to cause erosion or scour that channel. So basically, we want to set that pipe at that elevation of where it comes out right now, and then just shoot it over with enough pitch to get the water through it.
But you don't know you don't know where that is necessarily, because it's not flowing, so you don't know really where the water is it?
No, they're gonna grade it so that water flows through it. Simply using a level. You know, you can come into situations where if it's so flat, you know, you really need to look at the elevations, but if you've been out there.
No, I know there's enough
you know,
pitch, I just want to make
yeah.
sure that what they do is what you have in mind, and there's nothing to
Yeah.
tell anybody.
They'll come out and inspect it.
Well, again, that's, you know, something that we need to know, I think, so that we understand how it's going to be
We
done,
can-
so that
we
we
can-
understand it's going to be done
Yeah.
to, you know, a way that's going to protect the resource.
We can get a survey crew out there, we can shoot the elevation of where it's gonna exit here and come up with elevations. It's just gonna take a few days for us to do that and put those on a plan and get those to Andy.
What is this shaded sort of?
I'm just showing where the future wing,
Oh,
that's the
okay.
future wing walls, just to kind of,
Where's the restoration area?
it's up gradient. It's up here, kind of where it says intermittent stream channel. By my best guess, and again, I don't have that plan, I saw Andy's plan.
So, and did that get planted then?
No. That was on the agenda for tomorrow too, again.
Is there elevation already on there? I see 402 at one end of the driveway and then 400 at the, I mean, is it a 2-foot drop from one end to the other? Is that what?
It was at one point in time, you know, before they started excavating on this side.
So these grades aren't real.
So it's all,
Right. Yeah.
So what's?
I mean, it's probably, to answer, you know, it's probably pretty close to what this is, because, you know, as you look at this section in between the hay bales, that is what was existing. So, you know, it is probably pretty close to that elevation of 390, 399, something like that.
What's the condition of the area that was referred to as restoration hasn't been?
This section right here?
Upstream.
This is
Upgrade.
down, upgradient?
Upgrade.
Upgradient is, you know, altered. I mean, they're hammering that trench through. I don't really have a good picture of it, but if you go out there, you know, you'll see this, and well, this has been filled in now today, but, you know, they've been
Okay,
basically
so
working in
that's
that area.
ledge.
Oh, yeah.
Solid
Yeah.
ledge.
Yeah.
So that isn't gonna erode before the cows come out.
No, I mean, it really, that's why it should be good. I mean, because where there isn't ledge right now, because they've been hammering ledge, it's almost essentially the whole area is riprap. You know.
So the riprap that's up gradient of the flared end, I mean, of the retaining wall, that wasn't an area proposed to be disturbed before then, correct? That was all natural as well?
Yep, and we can leave it natural if you want. Again, we kind of went back and forth on all this stuff. But that's the only
Well,
area.
I guess I just don't know, are there
Yeah.
trees there? Is it vegetated? I'm not quite, do you have one of the pictures?
You know, I don't have a picture of that side of it.
But it's within the limit of work, right?
Yeah, it's within the limit of work, so there's no trees or anything.
Okay,
Yeah,
so it's already been cleared?
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. It's not, and so it's not within like a couple, well, I don't know.
It's inside the
Kept a
hay.
few here and there, but.
It's
I mean,
inside the hay bales. I don't think there's any trees there.
No.
Couldn't be any trees because you have the culvert and all that
that's what's coming.
going right across. So it can't be any trees. You know what I mean? Because it's culvert
Mhm.
is 50 feet wide.
Right.
Well, it's just, it's outside of the retaining wall, so I don't know why that was disturbed to begin with, I guess. Even though it's within the limit of work, I'm not sure why the channel was disturbed there.
Not following.
Because there's nothing going on in there, because the culvert's gonna end at the
Yeah, I
the
can't,
retaining wall.
and to be honest, I can't comment to say that it is disturbed here and not. I don't know exactly where that line is. You'd have to go up and look at it. The only reason why we showed riprap is because, you know, roughly from this erosion barrier down to here, there's a bit of a drop. So we just wanted to make sure, you know, that it wasn't gonna scour, but we can certainly minimize or, you know, cut that back. We can say, you know,
Well, I think it
not
probably
to
needs
put
to
the
be looked
riprap
at,
in.
I don't know, I mean, I can't visualize, you know, I'd probably wanna look at the plan in the field, but,
Yeah, that'd probably be good if
Sorry, you said there's a drop here? Because I'm seeing 404 and then 406.
yeah, this grade's coming down here. What it is, they've lowered this grade here. It's not apparent in the plan again, because these aren't as-built elevations, but when you stand there in the field, it's pretty good. That's probably a good idea, we should probably go take a look at it.
Do you have the as-built plans? Or is it, while you're there, it's happening on site?
What it is, well, in this situation, is, you know, they had an order of conditions to do work, they started doing work. You know, we wouldn't typically as-built just in the middle of the job. And, you know, once everything's done, they'll come out and as-built everything.
I'm just wondering what the proposed plan is versus, I'm just looking at this, thinking, okay, so this isn't actually what's there. Just wondering where the plans are for what was proposed to be built.
That's right here, yeah.
Okay, so that's what we have.
This whole area is disturbed. This is all our work area.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's.
This
it's-
is A. This is A. I was just trying to match it with that,
Yeah,
right?
so what I was just saying is that, so like, this is the
I mean, this is
wall,
one of the proposed
Yeah.
plans.
and you're
here.
showing
This is
riprap
the
beyond
plan
it.
profile sheet.
The hay bale should
This
be
is
up
the
to the
area
edge
we're
of the
talking
riprap.
about.
I mean, to
You
edge
can
of the
see
wall,
these
not beyond it.
Proposed
That's what they're
walls,
showing.
those are the same ones we kind of just overlaid on here, so you
Right.
get an
Well,
idea
it's this.
of
What are you
what
talking
we're
about?
proposing is in
The
relation.
wall goes
right?
right up to the hay
It's
bale.
going past this point here.
Right.
And on this plan, the approved plan, sorry, it's going up past here, is what
Yeah,
I'm saying.
yeah.
And on the approved plan, there's nothing beyond this point.
The wall's
So it
right up the
shouldn't,
hay
that
bale.
it should
Yeah.
not be, the erosion control line shouldn't be going straight across like that.
Right, it should be coming
It
from.
should have been come down.
I'm not sure.
That's what
And that may
it's
be
showing.
where
So
they
that-
are
I'm
in the
just wondering
field,
about the
you know.
alteration, whether that's already been
The hay
altered.
bales
It's now going to be altered.
I'm sure the hay bales are,
to the wall.
well,
So,
there's no
so
wall.
upgrade of the culvert, there's the path of the stream, which has been riprapped. On either side of that, has the area been disturbed? Has it been
Well, yeah, I mean, just,
devegetated and,
Either side of the stream,
yeah.
absolutely, because that's where the footings go for the culvert.
Does that need to be stabilized before?
It has riprap down now. It's solid rock. It's all ledge. It's nothing to stabilize. You know, it's all ledge out there.
it may be easier to look at it because my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but I only quickly saw the restoration plan. Is kind of, we're talking about, this area goes up. There's an area, I believe, right here, Andy, that is where replication planting needs to happen too, which is another thing that
Mhm.
needs to be done. So, you know, we're also looking
Carol, I
to
see
do
what you're
this
telling me.
work.
Well, if restoration planning needs to be done, then it can't be rock.
Up here is not.
Yeah.
And that's why I
Close to it,
you know,
yeah.
we really need to, what we're talking about, it's easier to look at in the field. But there's planting that's gonna happen, there's a cart road
Okay,
that kind of
so-
goes through, and that's what Carol's, I'm not exactly sure where, but somewhere like right through here. And some planting, there's a wetland restoration that needs to happen here, and there's shrubs that are gonna be going in here. And that work. we'd like
But what
to
I
do
was
that.
saying before was that, and if you look on the approved plan, the erosion control should have come down to the edge of the wall. If you look at this plan.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't go straight across according to what was approved.
Right.
And so anyway, again, I'm trying to just see what was disturbed, or what would, this is looking up towards where this upgrading part of the stream.
Okay.
Now, just in case it is soil that would need to be stabilized, if it's not going to be restored before winter, I would think it would need the same treatment with erosion control that we did on the other crest to keep it from washing away before it's planted.
Well, this isn't a slope, it's relatively flat area. The other ones were slopes. This is,
So it's just going to sit there and be dirt all winter?
well, it's already dirt, we're really just putting in plants.
So the planning isn't for stabilization, it's for revegetation?
It's restoration.
It's handwork.
Well, yeah, and there was some ruts, that probably would be hand raked up.
All right, so it's a question of whether we run any risk by not doing anything about it now.
Well, the planting can be done.
Yeah, it's just,
That's, I don't think that's a problem because it's not equipment.
Okay,
The point is that the planting was supposed to be done by September 27th or something like that, or 21st. Yeah.
The October 1st date, which is what we.
Well, it was supposed to, no, well, the restoration plan they had proposed to be done by like September 21st, I think. So it's again, it's just, that things have deadlines and dates for certain reasons, and then.
and that was because it was part of a plan that included a lot of other kinds of work there. that really
No,
had
it's
to
part
be-
of an enforcement order, that part.
Okay, so, all that said, how do we move forward?
Well, I don't know. I mean, are you guys satisfied with this proposal? Do you feel like you need other information on it? Do you feel like you want, You know, to view it in the field before you approve it?
That's what I was gonna say. For me, and again, I can't speak for everybody else, that it seems like something that somebody should go look at in the field. I mean, if you're willing to go take a look out in the field just to take through.
Mhm.
I think the plan of itself, just for a 1-year temporary fix, to get them through the winter, it doesn't seem outrageous, but I don't have the full body of knowledge, and I'm not seeing it in the field.
Well, I find it hard to believe that it's just one day to do this. And it seems a little complicated.
And I
I
hate
could
to
see
see
it
it
taking more
rushed
than
for
a
that
year.
reason. You know, I'd hate to see it put in hastily, and it's hard to, like you said, approve some of it without knowing in the field. And you know, I'm assuming you put this like together today, and not bad for putting it together today, but it is missing a lot of the information we'd normally look for.
Well, there's not a simpler solution to just get this buttoned down quickly?
That's what this is, and that's why, yeah, it's really not that complicated.
I
You know,
don't
it's a
think
matter of,
I
yeah.
don't think it's that it's that complicated. Because I don't have the information, I mean, we're asking the questions about what the flow was like and what the pipes are sized like. I mean, that's just stuff that we don't have for other, you know, it's not documented. You know, so those are just the questions, you know, if it was to overtop, what's it gonna do? So is it gonna overtop steel, and if the equipment then slides off into the wetland, you know, do we have an issue with that, you know, kind of a thing? Or, I mean, it's just trying to figure out, we're talking buttoning up from the perspective of not having any impact on the wetland. And I don't want there to be a problem because you continue to use it, you know, as the season goes and gets worse. Because I get it that you're saying it's sort of a construction road, it doesn't have to meet certain standards, but also it's right next to the rest of the stream, but I don't want there to be a problem with it. And you know, what is the width of the road now, would you say? I mean, it's been so narrowed because of the trench, so the trench was what, 10 feet
Oh,
wide?
now it's probably, now that the trench is in?
Yeah.
I think it's like 15 feet wide or something.
Just because I had this, I mean, when you would drive down it before, you had no room. You know, there was no leeway to make a
Wow.
mistake, really.
In a car, you mean?
No, well, I mean, in the tow truck I was in, when my car got stuck.
Well, we drive, you know, the excavator is probably 14 feet wide,
Yeah.
so it may seem like there's no room, but there actually is, because we have
Yeah,
much larger
it seemed like
vehicles
there was no
going
room,
through.
sitting
Right.
up in the tow truck, looking down on the,
And now,
the stream.
it's gotten probably,
So add another 10
Six.
feet, maybe 6 feet,
yeah,
I think.
at least, yeah. Yeah.
So how wide is the steel plate?
Well, the steel plate goes the opposite direction.
So it's gonna go with the stream, with the culvert?
It's gonna, the steel plate only has to bridge over a very couple feet.
So, yeah, it's the same ones you see on the roads. There probably could be several plates that kind of butt up against each other.
So-
They're usually like plywood, you know, 4x6 or 6 foot, you know.
It's,
Basically, we're showing you have to have a minimum to overlap a couple feet, really.
But then you're gonna go up, cover the whole culvert pipe. So
Yeah, correct.
so then the
It's
width
gonna
of it
go
is,
from- It's,
I mean, they're typically,
well,
what,
these are
like
20,
8 feet?
this is a 20-foot stick of pipe, and it's probably 3/4, so that's why I said 15 feet. But yeah, we show it going up.
You know, you
We
have-
show it showing 20 feet.
Is this scale, sorry?
You're
Yeah.
probably gonna put the plate this way, right?
Scale.
No, you might-
Yeah. Yeah.
This way.
Yeah, I see.
So you're only, you know, you have two 12-inch pipes next to each other.
Yeah.
So
It's a
the
very
way,
small.
the other thing, so on this
Span.
downstream side of the pipe, right now you've got the hay bales. So are the hay bales coming out there?
Just where the pipe's gonna come through.
So is the pipe gonna kind of overhang?
We show it, and the way I'd see him do it is coming right up through the hay bale, essentially. So if you
Is that,
look
because it
at,
kind of drops.
It does. So if you look at this, this is that, these are the hay bales. The top of the hay bales is basically at the existing road. As you kind of look at it, you're looking down the road. You know, those pipes are gonna kind of come right up to the middle of those hay bales, right up to the edge.
So
They're gonna have to pull these hay bales out, hammer this trench, and then put the hay back in around the pipes.
And you could shorten the pipes and just have a little area of riprap in the trench.
We could do that.
Does that kill you on fill though? When you're trying to backfill around the pipes, if you don't go all the way through and you end up with a section of riprap here?
No, that's fine. I mean, if we pull it back to here, Andy?
Yeah.
Just do
Just
riprap
what,
here.
what keeps the fill
That's
from
fine.
collapsing?
Well, that'll now be open, is what he's saying.
Okay, yeah, all right.
And you just open it up.
That's gonna be outside as it emerges from.
But if we do on that side, I guess I just recommend the same point Carol was making on the other culvert. It'd be probably better to have this open, so it's not flowing through the hay bales. Open it right up. Because essentially what we're doing is we're carrying clean water through riprap, through a pipe, and then back, you know, so it's not like it's coming off a construction site, you know, it's coming through.
Right, and it's not gonna have a lot of.
Did you, I don't remember in the restoration plan, was there seeding that was supposed to occur there? Because that's so shaded, I don't know. Just in terms of, again, clean water, if it's, I'm not sure if that's.
I'm not sure, I've seen, I mean, I saw that plan yesterday.
Yeah.
Did you have that plan?
I didn't know. I didn't.
How enforcement. Um, So they're proposing to put in 12 inches of impact area soil to be replaced in mitigation area. So they actually are proposing to add soil in there.
12 inches of impact.
It says, so proposed mitigation, oh wait, that's the proposed mitigation. No, this is the- oh, sorry, restoration.
That's the orders off the culvert, right? The completed culvert.
What's that?
This is for the completed culvert though, as far
No,
as
this is
restoration of
just,
the area, or is that?
no, this is for the enforcement order. And it has all the other aura area, but I'm just trying to look for where just the restoration.
I think
What are they?
look in the top right corner. Does it say something up there? No, it's a lot of information on that one page.
Well, do you want to look at it? I'm just not seeing it.
It says, this plan is prepared in response to the Bolton Wetland bylaw enforcement order issue.
Where, what's it? Okay.
Top right.
Yeah, but it doesn't say what they're doing in there. And it's just, that's just the general
Oh.
notes. Unless this is the, oh, and this, the construction protocol is for that.
You looking for the seating?
Yeah, I'm looking to see if there's
Yeah, so I
seating being
think just when I
proposed.
quickly looked at this the other day at the plans, the two mitigation areas call for the seating. I think it's underneath, but this is the wetland area. I'd have to read through there to see if
Well, see, I don't know, because he's saying excavate all existing shrubs and vegetation. I mean, that doesn't, that's not the restoration.
they. Yeah.
Um,
Oh, I thought it was an abbreviation or something.
It's the area already really is all alone. I mean, I don't know why, I don't
Yeah, I don't know, I'm just trying to find out if he was proposing, if they proposed to seed it or not. And I don't even see the plantings, that unless they're, I don't know, maybe that's not the plan.
There was one in August, because that was the issue.
This is
The plan that
July.
you had that I saw, the July plan didn't have them on there.
Okay,
Remember
so
there
that may
was-
not be the plan.
Because when
Remember there
I,
was one where there were two plans, Carol? Remember he did one and then we did a second one, just buying all the plans, I think. So that might be the first one.
Well, I may
It
not
was in
have it
Au-
in here,
it was in
and
August.
obviously I'm not finding it very quickly. And
It
we
was
do have
in
a
August,
continued
wasn't it?
hearing, so, I don't know, I guess,
So he's-
so I am not completely comfortable just myself approving this design in the field. I think if Jim wants to attend
Sure.
and be part of it, that's fine, and I definitely think Brandon needs to be there, or their engineers, you know, from your firm. So, and I don't know how you then, you know, if it doesn't happen, you know, what your issues are and when you want it to happen, and, you know, if, you know, it's not part of the plan, so it's not part of the order of conditions. I don't know how you want to handle it.
I'll bring that one through. It is a tough one. I tend to fall on the side of getting it in and not so much rushing it, but trying to get it in, get it right, buttoning it up as fast as possible, but not trying to do it within 24 hours if it's gonna mean really rushing that. But that said, you know, then it's a question of, do we extend the orders? And I'd like to get everybody's thoughts on that in general. It seems like the road crossing C, you guys can get done tomorrow. It seems like it might be a little rushed, but it seems like that could be. But especially with this, and it really would be really good, I think, for Carol to take a look, especially if Jim would go out with her. And pounding through that rock, I'm sure you guys can do it in a day, but I just worry it'd be rushed. Trying to get it done by the end of the day tomorrow would just mean trying to get it done next.
Well, it sounds like there's still a little bit of, if not confusion, a little bit of doubt over a couple of the details. So I think it's worth a look, and particularly with Brandon, to finalize those details before we okay it.
Should I get the hammering done?
Yeah,
Or do you want me to hold off until you have it all?
Is there an engineering reason to hold it off?
no, we can hammer it.
I just, if you're gonna shorten it up at all, then you wouldn't need to go.
Yeah.
But you know.
Even if we short it, we gotta hammer it.
Still good all the way through, yeah.
Mhm.
You're gonna want this to happen. You're gonna want this to go
Yeah.
for the winter.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
well, you know, we wanted to have by
Yeah.
October 1st.
But
But now, yeah, no, I'd rather, that's what I'm
You
trying to
want-
say, I'd rather see it get done and get done right now. There's no point in trying to rush it in a day or trying to just
Right.
shut it down.
We want to get it done, but we don't want to say, give me your best shot that you can do within a day. We want it shut down right for the winter, which may take more than a couple of days.
Well, it was
but,
it's supposed to be done October 1, so why did it take another 21 days to get to here?
September 27th is what I'm understanding was the enforcement,
For the restoration.
the restoration.
Yeah.
So there are two dates that were missed.
Yeah.
And I guess being new to this, I'm just trying to understand, given the scope of this project, how, in the initial discussion where the October 1st came up, it was brought up by the commission versus by the organization, which was a bit startling to me. Wait a minute, isn't that part of the project management? You have a date, October 1st, we're trying to hit this date, versus if the commission hadn't, actually, I was asking the question, okay, you know, I'm learning about this project, and I didn't understand how the project management happens, that the September 27th is missed, and then October 1st is missed, and then we're here 3 weeks after the time saying, okay, we still have to finish this, and I understand your point is that construction is happening. It'll happen probably till November. Yes, that's true, the weather's agreeable, however, it's these dates, and I guess I don't understand how that happens.
Okay, let me try to explain. In the scheme of what we've had to do, this represents 0.3% out of 100% of the work. So you've got 99.7% complete. What's left to do is 1 day, 2 days worth of work. So it's extremely minor. The plantings for this restoration were supposed to have come last week, and I can show you the email from Shannon's where we buy our plantings. The order got screwed up on their part, and instead of coming last week, they came with the order when the plantings were delivered. The picture of the plantings that came on Monday. So,
Well, that's for the other road.
but again, so I would say, instead of focusing on the 0.03% that's not done, I would focus on the 99.7% that's gone really well without problem. You know, I mean, this is a pretty big undertaking, this whole wall.
No, I understand that.
And the fact that all this stabilization got done, and we're down talking to an area here which is maybe 100 square feet, 10 by 3, or 30 square feet. This is 30 square feet.
Why are we just
area.
getting the plan tonight? Why wasn't this produced before this time?
I spoke to Brandon about it, and came out last week. He was gonna call Carol, but we are where we are. But I mean, again, it's 99.7% done. I mean,
But 2 weeks
and without
ago-
any problems.
But 2 weeks ago, we said we were gonna be done, and we're not.
Are we doing a?
Well, excuse me, no, tomorrow I'm supposed to be done.
Okay, tomorrow.
So if you approve this plan, or something, or some variable of it, it'll be done. I'm not saying it won't be.
Are we doing a postmortem, or are we discussing where to go from
I
here?
don't think we're gonna be able to approve this plan by, do you think we're gonna be able to, you go out there, you take a look, you okay it, we feel okay with you and Jim doing that? And it'll all be done by tomorrow night.
Well, I have something scheduled from 10:30 to 3 tomorrow, so I'm not available except for first thing.
Okay.
So if that works for Brandon, you know, then he can be there and Jim can be there.
Sure.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do it tomorrow.
I mean, you can always look at the stuff that, but this whole wetlands crossing on the other side is an entire wall being built and constructed, and it all got done, no problems. You know?
No, I understand this is a huge project.
But I'm saying,
I
you know,
understand the scope of the project. I'm just trying to understand how, given the scope of the project, how the deadlines happen and go by and just.
99.7% of the work got done within, actually, if you just tell me what to do in this little area here, this will be done tomorrow, it'll all be done, on time. We were here 2 weeks ago, said have it done, it can be done. So the plane got a little delayed, I don't, seems like we're beating a horse, you know, to me. You know, this is not a,
I can.
What is
first
the
thing.
question before the commission?
Times first thing, 9.
9.
Sure.
So then let's do it, finish it tomorrow.
Well, yeah, I guess the only question would be, approving the plan for that crossing.
there's no
which,
magic to tomorrow, it's just a date.
if you're able to go out in the morning, if you're comfortable with the plan, Jim's comfortable with the plan, and we can approve that. If you're comfortable with it and Jim's comfortable with it, to give them approval to go forward with it, you think you can get everything done tomorrow?
Right, so what if we're not? So what do you want us to do?
See, therein lies my problem, because,
So,
and what if everything
Depends
can't
on-
get done tomorrow? Like I said, I'd hate to see them throwing something together
Right.
like at
so would
9:59 tomorrow night.
let me just throw this out, and again, just to try to move it along. If for some reason we're not comfortable and we think that it needs some further review, would you want to do this through enforcement action? Require certain things to be submitted, again with certain dates, with certain information provided? Or, I mean, I just don't know how you want to do it. I don't feel like I want to be the only person for you guys approving it, where I'm not an engineer and it's not, really my expertise to say that this is going to work in function. Brandon may feel comfortable, it's not the stamp plan, it's not the engineered plan, it's, so I want to know what level everyone's going to, be comfortable with it, and I'm not sure until we go out and look at it either, where I'll be with that.
I'm not a civil engineer either, and I don't know that any of us exactly are. It may
He
be
is.
worth,
He is.
anybody on the commission is.
Oh, no, but he knows what he's doing.
Wait,
Okay.
but it may be worth one or two persons with the commission going up and looking at it with someone who is a civil engineer to explain to us what they find.
You mean Brandon?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Yeah, and that's fine, so we can set that up. I guess my question was, if we're not satisfied, what is the expectation for us? I mean, maybe we will be, but I'm just
Depends how
throwing it out there, because
This
I
becomes a
don't,
difficult one, yeah.
Well, I think an enforcement order might be the way to do it.
Is that the quickest way that could be done without waiting for another meeting and doing a vote?
Why am I getting an enforcement?
well, I mean, because you haven't met your timeframes in your permit approval through the plan that we approved. The plan said it's going to be done at certain times. I'm just saying, if it's going to keep going on, because there's some issues that we see, I don't really want it falling back just on me, to be honest. That's how I feel about it. It shouldn't, I don't want to be out there and feel like I'm being bullied into approving something if
Yeah.
it seems as though it's not clear to me. And and I appreciate that Jim's gonna be there, but I'm just not, I just wanna know from your expectation what you would like. If I'm not comfortable with it, then do I just say, I'm not comfortable, come back in 2 weeks? Or, or do you want it to be more of an engineered plan? Or do you want to have it reviewed by someone, on your behalf? Or, I don't know.
So would the enforcement order, this new one, be the result of not meeting the existing enforcement order? I'm just trying to.
No, well, in part, that one would be, but I'm talking about really the pipes.
Okay.
And that they didn't meet the dates that the work was allowed. Yeah.
But those, okay,
So it's really just trying to get conditions on it if we feel like that something's not happening. Is there something else that we would want
Yeah.
to get in play, I guess is how I put it. Can I ask you one other thing about,
Yeah.
do you think natural heritage needs to be in the discussion at all? I mean, this is all endangered species habitat.
I mean, it's within the improved limits,
I mean, I think
and,
probably they should just be consulted and at least, notified that this is what you're proposing to do. Especially
certainly copy
if the
them on
commission's
this plan,
comfortable
yeah.
with it, then that, hopefully they will be too, but they may have some other input.
yeah, we can copy.
I mean, I know
this
they
plan.
did that with the restoration plan.
Yeah. It certainly wouldn't hurt to copy them. That.
I think what we've done in the past is to say something like, we would be willing to go this many days with a revised plan, as long as the revisions are communicated to the commission. And it takes no longer than that many days to finish it. That way we could say, all right, what we saw is going to take more than a day or two. Maybe it'll take 3 or 4 days, but not longer than that, subject to their describing what it is they need to do, and we'll pre-approve that. If it's going to be longer than that, it'll need to come back to us.
That's gonna be a tough one.
Do you get what I'm driving?
I do, but I think the tough one is gonna be determining that time frame because it's all gonna come down to approving this plan. If it's something that, like you said, if you went out there and everything looked fine and we were fine with the plan, it was approved, maybe they can get it done today, or maybe they can get it done tomorrow, maybe it's 3 or 4 more days to get it done.
This
But if
plan
it's-
or with minor modifications?
Right, but if the problem is if it comes back with major modifications, or like Carol was saying, she's not comfortable saying, I think this part's okay, I don't think this part's okay, then it's gonna require somebody to review it. Or
That's,
somehow.
Yeah, I don't think it's
which
going
is-
to be major
it starts to-
modifications.
that's worst case.
I don't
Right,
see
no,
that.
but I'm trying to think of worst case too, you know what I mean, and I think that's what you were saying too, what if, if everything goes great tomorrow morning, fine, then, it's by the end of the day tomorrow. But if things don't go great, and we do need to have it reviewed, how
Maybe
much
just
time does that
exactly by
take?
the end of the day tomorrow, but it's no more than a couple of days.
Right.
Well, Brandon started off with by the end of the week.
Well, yeah, I think that was for safety.
I was trying to prevent
Yeah.
this issue from coming up, so instead of
Right.
setting a deadline that may not be hit for this exact reason, you may as well push it up. I get why you're reluctant to do that based upon the other deadlines, but that's typically what would be done, just to make sure there is that factor of safety. We'll tell you, we'll try to get it done by then, but in case it doesn't, at least there's no deadline.
Yeah, I don't want you,
Yeah.
as Brian said, and I'll paraphrase it in ruder words, I don't want you to do a half-assed job to get it done by the end of the day tomorrow. If it's only going to take another day to do it right.
This is such simplistic.
I know. But it's
Work.
simplistic stuff we should have seen a month ago.
So,
Well, I mean,
Honestly,
I know.
but I mean, it
If
is,
we
right?
get
Simplistic
past-
stuff, we should, I mean, you can tell me it's simple and I should understand it completely, but I should have seen it a month and a half ago. And I can't, I'm not an engineer. I get exactly what's
Seen it a month
happening
and a half
here.
ago?
What?
Why would you see
Because
that?
you were supposed to be done by October 1st, and if you weren't gonna be done by October 1st, you should have had plans to button it up in place before then, so you wouldn't get slapped with an enforcement order, which I don't wanna slap on anybody. But again, we keep missing these things, and then it's like, well, here, this is simple and easy, just approve this. I'm not comfortable approving it.
Well, I'm just-
I mean, I trust Brandon, I get what he's
No, I'm
saying,
just-
it makes sense to me all, I can look through it, it makes sense to me,
Yeah.
perfectly
I
good
just-
sense to me, but I'm not in the
This
field.
is just like 10 feet here.
Yeah, I understand. It's all just little, oh, it's just this, it's just this. Well, then it should have been done. What year was it supposed to be done originally? This crossing? I mean, what year was this crossing supposed to be done originally on the original plans?
There is no deadline.
2015? There's no deadline.
Well, the
Oh.
permit was only valid for 3 years initially, but,
Right. And it has been extended, which is fine, but, you know, how
No,
many
no,
years
there's
is
no
it?
deadline. The
Right.
fact of the matter is, there is no deadline to have the work done.
Right.
There was no deadline set.
Correct. But the deadline is October 1st to have everything out of these areas, right?
yes.
It
Working
was.
across.
And it has been year after year after year. Every year, by October 1st, you have to stop. And it always seems like it's such a mystery when it comes up.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry,
We
but
didn't
no,
even-
excuse me, you always interrupt
This
me.
is the
You
first
keep telling me
year we-
how simple it is.
This is the first
I'm
year
saying
we've even
it's not
done work
simple.
here. It's never happened before. This is the first year we did any work in any of the wetland crossings.
Fine,
This is
great,
the first year.
that's
You're like
fantastic.
beating me up. This is the
No.
first year we've ever done any work in any wetland
Fine.
crossing in this project. So you're saying year after year, this is the first year.
Okay.
There is no other year.
Okay, I'm completely wrong.
Yeah, you are.
That's fine. But you keep telling me this is a simple plan, simple
is.
plan, simple. Somebody needs to be able to
One
agree that
pipe
it is.
and a little
Yeah,
some rock.
I see
That's
how it
what the
works.
plan
I'm
shows.
not there in the field.
Okay.
Carol's willing to go out in the field and take a look. Jim's willing to go out in the field and take a look.
It may seem complicated because you're not in the.
It doesn't seem
you don't have the
complicated to me.
experience,
It
but
doesn't seem
it's one
complicated.
pipe and rocks.
It seems
That's the whole
very
plan.
simple to
Two
me.
pipes.
Two pipes, two pipes.
Yeah, you
Rocks, that's
fill
what it shows.
vegetated wetland, you're going in and out of, right? Regardless.
I mean, you're getting a little excited here.
What? Yeah, we
Well,
are,
we-
because
we
you keep
probably-
telling me it's simple and I should just approve it. And I'm
No,
trying
no,
to
I'm
figure
just
out
saying, it-
how we can approve this simply.
I'm just saying, it doesn't get any simpler than
Right.
two pipes, rock.
And I'm very,
That's all that's shown on that
I'm very
plan.
hopeful that Carol and Jim would be able to go out tomorrow, see it in the field, take a look at Brandon and say,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
this
we-
is great. Where I'm at is, what happens if they say no? And we have people waiting for their appointments, and you telling me that it's simple and I should just understand it, isn't really helpful. I'm trying to
sorry.
move this forward.
Okay.
All right?
I apologize. I don't know
So
what I'm
what
doing.
happens if you can't approve the plan?
Right.
If we can't.
How do we get to
If we
this?
can't approve it, and it's not clear how they're going to fix it, we'll have to come back to the commission.
Right, but then, are they subject to an enforcement order, which honestly I prefer not to have to do if we can find a way around that.
We'll have to decide what they're subject to.
Right, but the problem, well, I shouldn't say the
We
problem,
don't want to be there.
we'd have to make a decision tonight to either extend, we'd have to set up those circumstances tonight. Otherwise, we leave it as at midnight's tomorrow night, and if it's not approved tomorrow, then it gets to the enforcement order point. And again, I'm hopeful you guys will go out tomorrow, it looks like it's fine, everybody will be in agreement, we can just get it all done tomorrow and it's done, but what happens if it
And
doesn't?
what's the situation right now? Do they have an enforcement order that they have to shut it down, button it up by a certain date? Well, we haven't issued one of those yet.
Right,
Yeah, we
but what-
haven't issued one of those yet. That's what I'm saying, is that, that's what I was trying to say, is that's an option for you guys. If you wanted to have things put into place and have things conditioned in any way, and we couldn't approve it tomorrow, and then the weather's bad tomorrow, which it's gonna be, and Thursday is probably not supposed to be so good. You know, if you start getting to the point where, you know, we wanna see a revised plan with other information, whether it's got inverts on it, or, I don't know, I'm not saying that we are necessarily, I'm just saying, if you got to that point, you might wanna have some way to control how long it's gonna take, when it's gonna get submitted, and how it's gonna be proceeding. And so I'm just throwing that out as something that you might want. Hopefully, you know, we'll get out there, we can find a reasonable way to agree to it. But I completely agree with everyone, you know, that we shouldn't be at this point at this time tonight. You know, it really should have been submitted a long time ago.
So how quickly do you think Heritage can give you input? I mean,
So it
how-
depends on how busy they are.
Right,
There's
so-
just one person who's kind of the point person here.
Could take
The typical.
a week or two?
Well, the typical answer is they typically have 30 days. You know, so hopefully, given the fact that it's an ongoing project, they usually have more leeway, you know, because they're going to want to address it and weigh in quicker than that, but typically it's 30 days.
Do we feel we need to delay this by 30 days?
Oh, extend it, you mean, extend the,
Yeah.
Is it possible to put more information about the flow? So I'm looking at section BB, and I'm thinking, okay, well, you eyeball basically how much water based on what you've seen over time. Do you have a measurement? How much water is coming through there? So you have the amount of flow going down into this culvert, or into this swale, or this area
It's
here.
just a depression.
This depression. Okay, and then what's the measurement of how much of this is going to be absorbed? How much of this rock, if you could put more of those, and I would think that, given tonight's meeting, that those are standard measurements that you have for building practices.
That's not meant to absorb it, it's just a settlement. It's just to allow if there is anything in the water, to give it a chance to settle. That's in solid rock.
So under here, this is,
Sledge.
Yeah, it's on ledge,
But
so if water comes down into this depression,
yes.
and this is ledge, it's essentially just either goes through here or just goes immediately. How much water,
But it allows, if there's any anything
Sediment.
floating
Yeah.
in the water, it sinks to the bottom of that. It just cleans the water.
into
off.
this here,
No,
before it goes through?
It sinks to the bottom.
But that's what I was talking
Yeah,
about, the
yeah.
absorption of this
Yeah,
area.
that's
The
just-
water kind of,
If it has anything in it, like if you
sits
took a
in
glass of water and you stirred something in it, if you let it settle and it didn't dissolve, it's gonna sink to the bottom. That's what that's designed to do, is just to be a sediment basin, like a temporary, just to clean the water a little bit. It's not meant to
Okay.
absorb.
right, so when this, what's the measurement between this pipe and here? So if leaves and debris, et cetera, I'm looking at this thinking, wow, gee, that looks pretty shallow, and I don't know how much water is coming through here. I don't know how big this is.
It's,
it's meant
Yeah.
just to convey it right through. It's not really sized to like a detention basin where we're looking to attenuate a volume of water, kind of what you're
Mhm.
saying. It's just meant to pass right through.
But
The
so
only
with
reason why
leaves
we're
and other stuff,
providing-
it may not, might get
Right,
right
so
up.
we're providing a little bit of a sump, if you will, the
Mhm.
same way in a catch basin, so, and this should, like we said, this should be polished water coming through, it's not coming off of the construction site. You know, there's a sump there that if you do have some leaves, or you do have some debris, you know, ideally, Danny's saying is it should catch in that riprap and settle out, but, you know, certainly it's gonna be something through the winter that, you know, if the site super's going through and if the pipe's blocked, it needs to be cleaned. You know, and make sure that that passage continues through, yeah.
So there may need to be a note or procedure or whatever to get a maintenance.
There's already,
pass on
you know,
going
there's an existing SWIP, Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, on the whole site, where they look at all these things. They're supposed to be maintaining the erosion control line, they're supposed to be
Right,
maintaining the catch
but
basins.
this is new.
This would be, but this would fall into, like, what I'm saying is those are general, yeah, so all those catch basins, all the catch basins should be maintained. All these culverts should be maintained, but it's certainly
So
something that you would want.
it sounds like what
yeah.
Liz is sort of driving at, though, you could add some information to the plan, so that there would be something of record that says, you know, when, you know, in a little O&M for that, you know, that the sump is gonna be 2 feet, or 3 feet, or 4 feet, and it's gonna be 3 feet wide, or 4 feet wide, or whatever, because, again, those are the things we don't really have. So if we go back and they say, no, it's only 2 feet wide, and it hasn't filled in, you know, you say, oh, well, it was designed to be 4 feet, you know, deep, and it has filled in, right? I mean, so,
Yeah.
I mean, we have had, and, you know, right now things are going really pretty well with the maintenance of the site, but we have definitely had our problems with things not being maintained, and we haven't had a SWIP in a few weeks, you know, so I don't know how much it's being monitored. So it does help to have it in writing and part of our filing and part of our, you know, what we approve.
So weird is that because.
Well, I think that's, if we, there's maybe some modifications that we talk about in the
Right.
field, whether they shorten up the riprap or out of the riprap, or maybe there's some, you know, we talk about how deep that's gonna be and whether that it looks like it's gonna be sufficient when we're there, and then get it captured in the plan, you know, and get it captured so that, you know, we have something to keep on record and know if it's not being maintained, you know, what the design was
Right.
for.
So everything goes well, right?
Right, yeah.
You see everything you want to see, you're
Yeah.
comfortable with the plan, Jim's comfortable with it. Everything goes in by the end of tomorrow, then we really don't need to change anything tonight, right? But is it worth considering trying to extend it out just so they aren't, I know we want to get everything done, but it's that same, as Jim so eloquently put it, half-assed rule. I want to see everything get in, but I don't want to see them there at 11:59 hastily throwing stuff together. Does it make sense to, and I'm sure Andy doesn't want to be in a position where it would have to be an enforcement order put out. Does it make sense to extend the current order of conditions by, I don't know, you know, anybody could throw out days, but X amount of days or a week or something along those lines, just so we can be comfortable with the plans, they can get everything, they can get everything in a comfortable time frame.
I'm more comfortable with extending the work on this crossing than I would have been with the other crossing because of the gradings and the buffer and the possibility of erosion there. That would have been a different story.
Right.
So I think we have a bit more time to work with here in terms of the actual resources.
So to double that time, would that be 2 working days to get it all buttoned up? Would that be acceptable?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be able to inspect it on Friday, so I could look at it Thursday before I left.
And by working days, those are days that there's not drenching rain.
Well, I think we're gonna have rain. I haven't looked at the forecast, but I think both Wednesday and Thursday it's supposed to rain, I don't know.
Because tomorrow might be a half
I
day of
heard sort of
work,
mixed.
and
like
then there
how
might be
heavy.
another half day somewhere further down and weather dependent.
Do you guys stop when it rains hard?
We don't stop, it depends what we're doing. It doesn't,
Wednesday,
like if you're trying to work with dirt,
Yeah, so tomorrow.
dirt and rain, just mud, so we don't do that, but we can do.
What about
Okay.
this case?
This is working really, well, in this case,
Good for
I would
his
rather not
site.
do it anyway,
Good for the ride, right?
just because it's next to the wetland. If this wasn't a wetland,
Look at that.
hammering rock and stuff, yeah, there's no problem doing that in the rain.
Really nice.
But there's a wetland right there, so why do it in the rain? Why take any chances? You know? I mean, there's hay bales there. You could hammer this out in the rain.
Yeah, they're calling for rain Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
and
next
that's-
Sunday, Monday,
National
Tuesday,
race.
Wednesday, Thursday, next week are all sunny and gorgeous in the 60s, so.
Yeah.
That's right. 70s next Tuesday.
Yeah, it's gonna be really nice.
So, all that said,
We can, yeah, sorry.
we can go. No,
I'm
I'm saying
We can get out there, we do survey in the rain, it's not too heavy, but we can meet tomorrow, I can have time to get a crew out there, we can get some elevations on this plan, take this week to kind of add some of these details, and then plan on doing the work next week. Sounds
Yeah.
acceptable.
Do you need that?
Well,
I
Well-
hate to say this,
Yeah.
but the best time to look at stormwater is when it's raining hard.
Yeah, so we should meet tomorrow.
Well, that's what
I don't
we're
know
gonna
when
look at
it's gonna be
tomorrow.
raining in the morning or not, but it would be best to see it both, you know. And if it's not raining hard, then yeah, maybe we want to see it Thursday too. We can
So
decide that.
on the plan would be how much water do these two, it's 12 inches, it's 2 feet, how much water, how much space do you need, how much flow? If you don't know the flow, you haven't measured it, but based on your experience, you could write down, you think it's between this much, you know, give us a window so then we have an idea of this is just all thought out
We-
on paper.
Right, we
Little
can
more.
certainly dimension
know, like Carol was saying, we can provide minimum dimensions, like a minimum of 2-foot sump. But kind of what I said to Brian at the beginning is, you know, can an engineer, you know, quantify and come up with all that? Sure. You know, it's gonna take weeks and thousands of dollars.
Right.
We can run hydraulics and produce a document this thick to substantiate the pipes, but what I said at the beginning is we haven't done that. I mean, basically, we're looking at this with just good engineering practice, so there's really nothing I can put on the plan that's gonna quantify the volume and the flow.
And it's only gonna last 6 months.
Exactly.
And
So-
even if it overflowed, what would happen?
Well, that's what I think we
Jimmy,
can.
save till next July.
No.
What would happen if it overflowed?
Well, we talked about that.
Well, why
It's
doesn't it go in the same
it's gonna
place?
overtop the ledge and go up against the erosion control, it's gonna go through.
Doesn't make any, I mean, would it hurt anything?
Only if the erosion control is not maintained.
So you maintain your erosion control. I mean, if you're worried about it, you could stone
Yeah,
the
we
road in
talked
that
about
place.
Yeah, maybe
you
that's
know?
another thing.
I mean,
Let's finish talking about it tomorrow, because we've got too many other people who are sitting here.
Um,
So, sounded like you were going in the direction of next week?
of extending it a week, but others' thoughts on that? Does that make sense?
So we're not talking about C, right? We're talking about this plan only?
It would cover.
C, he thought he could have done
Yeah,
tomorrow.
tomorrow?
Which
Okay.
was not, no need to extend, because that's
Okay.
Yeah,
questionable
we know
how
what we're doing.
interpreted.
So it's just for 8.
not too complicated. What about the plantings there on that? Isn't there an area that you have to plant?
That's the restoration area. Yeah, we have a plan for that.
He's not doing the Oro plantings here yet, because they haven't finished the grading.
Okay, but where the enforcement was, where the
Yes,
machine
that has
went
to be
through,
done, and that
has
was
to get
supposed to be done,
Too, that's why I just wanna make sure
again,
that's out there.
September 21st, so I don't think there's a reason, I don't know that there's a reason to delay that, right?
That's what I was getting at, yeah.
I think so.
So, I mean, last meeting, he said he could have that done by the 21st, or 22nd was when we said the day, so that should be done by the end of tomorrow. Right.
Awesome.
And the plants are there, he said.
Yeah.
It does call for a seed mix, though, and it's not a winter rye. It was a wet seed, or wet,
What mix?
yeah, wet mix.
All right, so we probably don't have to do anything with C, just let that stand as it is. But when it comes to road crossing A,
Mhm.
we.
So,
want-
I mean, the way you were saying it before is just extending a period of time that the construction can occur out of season, or out of what
the
was approved in the
order of
plan.
conditions, yeah. Does that make sense? I mean, are people happy with that? Other ideas? Yes, no? Any thoughts?
I think it calls for a
So-
motion, and we can discuss it.
I mean, essentially, they're not even
Terms.
continuing with construction.
If we say another week, how are we gonna verify that? Are you gonna go out there?
Well, we were gonna have a site visit on Tuesday, so I guess, and we were looking at 10 o'clock Tuesday.
The 28th, October 28th,
Mm-hmm.
by 10 a.m.
There may not be enough time.
No, they work the weekends, too.
Depends on the rain.
It's actually supposed to be nice this weekend.
Yep, you said.
And then I don't understand, what if it's not done on October 28th?
Right, I don't,
Then what?
Well, then I think we can do an enforcement order, right? Isn't it?
Well, what's the difference between doing it next week and doing it now?
That could be a good, yeah.
The concern is obviously the drag.
Andy, what?
no, I think with C being done, I think, then his staff is available to go over to A and get that done. I don't think he probably, the only other crunch he's running against is trying to get it ready for paving, and that's just bringing in the gravel, the water line, and
Yeah, I mean, if I knew.
and that's it's still a ways
As
out.
soon as we
so,
approve the
you
plan,
know,
we'll take care of
Yeah,
it.
and you were thinking worst case, you could
And-
do it
and
all
as soon as you
tomorrow.
we know what we're doing.
Right.
It's not
Wait, that's a question. How much time, once you get an approved plan, do you need to?
one
do
day,
the work?
One day, yeah.
2 days. It's nothing. It's just very, very minor.
So what do you feel if we say that Tuesday by 10, when we come up with a site visit, we go and
I only
inspect it
said
and it's
48
done?
hours after you approve the plan.
Yeah, we just don't know if we're gonna approve it tomorrow, that's the only problem,
Yeah, that's why I'm saying
yeah.
48
Oh,
hours.
48
from-
hours. That's reasonable, right?
I mean,
Does that make sense?
Okay.
So we'd like to make a motion to,
Yes.
go ahead. Like to make a motion to extend the orders of condition for road crossing A at Century Mill Estates by an additional 48 hours.
From when the plan is approved.
Let's see, but then we have to figure out if the prelim is approved. Well, for an additional 48 hours from the, see, we have to say pending approval.
No, from when the plan is approved is fine. By the administrator and a commission member.
If it's not approved, they don't get the 48 hours.
There you go. All right, I'd like to make a motion to extend the orders of condition for road crossing A of Century Mill Estates by 48 hours from the approval of the winterization plan, if it is approved by our agent and one commission member. Does that make sense?
Okay, so you're extending you're really extending, it's not really the order of conditions, you're extending the approved work period.
Make a motion to extend the approved work period.
For an additional, why don't you just say for an additional 48 hours from the date,
Yeah.
date and time that the plan is approved, right?
Yes. Now, but see, then it's a question of if the plan is approved.
So if it's never approved,
Then
it's
it- so then it
Yeah.
goes on for.
If you say when and it doesn't
When.
happen, then it's not extended.
well,
Okay.
well, if you want me to do it,
But
do
doesn't that-
something with this, we gotta figure
I
out
know,
what
but
it is.
doesn't that
agree
just
on
leave it open until there is approved a plan?
Well, then, if,
If it's 48 hours from the approval of a plan, doesn't it stay open until a plan is approved?
Yes.
So you really can't say it that way, because that just leaves it open forever. Well, until the plan
Give
is
it
approved.
well,
date.
and
Yeah.
you could say if no plan is approved by
Bye.
Yeah,
such and such a time, then an enforcement order will be issued.
and you really think I can remember and say all this?
Well, you already
Okay.
said most of it, so you're really just adding
Why
on,
would an enforcement order issue at that point?
Well,
Where we can't proceed because there's no plan approved.
because, well, it may be that the board needs to have it submitted to them for review or
Yeah,
approval, and
why would
then just
that be
not
an
the two of
enforcement
us.
order that we can't comply with?
That's a good point.
Well, you should have thought of that, had it
Yeah, but
had
again,
it to us before this.
Maria,
right?
if we don't have an approval and we're not allowed to do the work, how can they enforce an order not to do the work? I
So the
don't-
enforcement order would be to get
Yeah.
something to the commission that is approvable,
Yeah.
that, you know, that would be the intent of it, I think.
Okay.
You know, or it could be that no further work occurs in that area and we just take the erosion controls out, but, you know, I don't know, let's see what happens, who knows? I don't know what it would be, you
Yeah.
know.
Okay.
So I think what you had said was that you were, your motion was to extend the approved work period for road crossing A by 48 hours, starting when the plan is approved by an agent and member of the commission. And if no plan is approved,
By the end of the day,
into the 48 hours.
by the end of, well, by the end of,
Oh, by a certain day.
yeah, by the end of October 22nd, right? It's
That's
supposed to be
tomorrow.
approved.
Tomorrow.
No, then we-
Oh, well, when do we need to approve the plan by?
So if it's not approved, if the plan is not approved, we have to go back, get approved, and then if it's not approved again, there could be a window of this happening up until, but if this keeps going on for 2
Yeah.
weeks, then we stop there, and then there's.
So your next meeting's November 4th. So why don't you say in no,
Yeah, see? That's a tough one. It's 48 hours from the approval of plans for the time period that shall not exceed October, whenever, November
Fourth,
4th?
third, before the meeting,
Yeah,
third, yeah.
3rd?
yeah.
Did you get that part?
If no plan is approved, then shall not exceed November 3rd, so I don't know, if there's something
Oh,
else.
that's, they have 48 hours from the approval of the plan.
Yeah, I got that. If no plan is approved.
If no, let's see, I was gonna say, but I was gonna say a deadline not to exceed November 3rd. After the 48 hours from approval of the plan,
But
the
if no-
deadline of which cannot
If no plan
exceed
is
November 3rd.
is approved by November 3rd, by close of business on November 3rd, the issue will be referred to the commission for further action.
Okay, would work.
That sounds beautiful, can I say that?
Okay, so approve
I read that somewhere.
Good.
November 3rd. The action for the commission for further action. Is that what you said? Further
Yes,
action?
that's what it said.
Okay. All right, so that was your motion
That was my motion that I'm throwing out
and
there.
amended.
And
So,
amended.
Second.
And seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. And that should be it, right?
yeah, he did have another item on the agenda, but we're so far past, I don't know. Or our past hearing that we had.
We have people waiting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's okay. Going up there very,
Yeah.
I'm just not gonna take my boots off. Oh, we went up
So you want to
there.
just continue Bloomfield over?
Yeah.
to-
Yeah. So, the commission would like to continue the public hearing on this intent from Broomfield, 164 Still River Road. Carol, are there any updates from Broomfield?
They'd like to continue to December 7th.
Okay, so the commission will continue Broomfield, 164 Still River Road. What did you say?
December
December
7th.
To December 7th at,
Oh, sorry,
7:15.
December 2nd.
Second,
Sorry,
thank you.
sorry.
December 2nd at 7:15. I have DPW at 7, right?
Yeah.
Ten o'clock is December 7th. It's my wife's birthday.
My son's birthday.
Another day of living.
Yeah, it's like I know that date for some reason.
All right,
With
so,
your machine.
Dan, that's a complicated project.
No,
I was on board, yeah.
I wasn't throwing it out.
Good.
So we have Mark here from Condyne, Mark Gibbs.
Okay.
Yes, I think Janet's coming back down. So I don't know if we didn't say, but Janet was recusing herself from Century Mill. She's not going to participate in Century Mill.
She's smart.
Yes.
Want to keep running the show, or should I?
Either or, either or.
We did visit the farm. And it's quite beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so Broomfield and Condyne continue?
Yeah, we did. We've done that. Oh, yeah. No, Condyne we're
Condyne,
taking up.
Yep.
Oh, Condyne we're taking it?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're continuing the public meeting on Condyne Capital Partners, 580 Main Street.
Dan, if you want to come up closer, you can see the plans too.
Okay, that's good.
Is that okay to stick in the middle then?
So, would you introduce yourself and
Reintroduce it. I can't even remember when you were
Yeah.
here last.
we're gonna need a summary kind of, because I think a lot of people are new and it's been a long time and we haven't, we've forgotten the details.
My name is Mark Dibb. I'm civil engineer with Condyne Engineering Group. The project that we started, I think back in April now, it's an assisted living facility at 580 Main Street in Bolton. It's currently known as the Bolton Office Park. It's as you come off 495 and head towards Bolton, it's that left turn into the Bolton Office Park. The Bolton Manor Housing Building is on the right. This is 495, this is 117. Turn left, the Bolton Manor housing is here. The entrance to the office building, which is an existing 100,000 square foot total building, is here, 2 stories. And the proposed development is in the back of the site with a footprint building of about 25,000 square feet. It'll have 60 bedrooms in it for an assisted living facility. Just to bring you up to date, we did meet a while ago. We had a site visit at one point. We walked the site. We had staked the limit of work, this hay bale line, staked the building, so we were able to walk the site. I think the wetlands were reviewed and generally accepted, and there wasn't any changes on the delineation or anything like that. From then, we also, Horsley and Witten Group was contracted to review the project. They reviewed it and submitted comments. During that time, I also had numerous meetings in front of the planning board to nail down some aspects of design that they were interested in. Things like the manor has historically used the office parking as overflow parking. So we came up with some ideas to help them essentially, because they were parking on the office park properties, which resulted in some site redesign. And
as I recall, the original design had some of the building overlaying or taking over area that had previously been parking for the office park.
correct, and I had
And that there were, related to that, questions about the stormwater plan, which is why it was reviewed and where the comments came from.
correct, yes, and just, I guess, to justify the delay a little bit was to get through planning to make sure nothing moved, a lot of extra pavement didn't come down for any reason or even get taken away. Some walkways and some amenities did get added, but relatively minor as far as impacts to our proposal. For giving them an easement for more parking on their area up here away from the resource areas. So yes, the review by Horsley and Witten did have numerous comments on the drainage. I'll go through some upgrades from when we talked till now. And
What was the difference between this and that one? Can you turn that one around so we can?
there is no, other than it being at a different scale,
Oh.
this you can see the entire property.
Oh,
It's
okay. Okay.
the entire property is 39 acres. It's subdivided.
Oh, okay. I thought
Basically,
you said that the planning board made some recommendations and that resulted in this.
I just wanted to show the
Oh,
bigger scale
okay.
drawing to discuss those changes. So through,
So you are gonna say what those
Oh,
changes
the
are?
planning
Yeah.
board change? Okay.
well, the planning board changes was, generally was access out to the street and up, just sidewalk access, as well as we granted an easement for them to build additional parking in the future. Up against that, they would handle the construction and any permitting that would have to do with that.
Including modifications to the stormwater plan.
Yes, to their stormwater plan. Again, it wouldn't be adjacent to any resource areas, but, if they have a basin here, it probably would meet requirements to just add the additional minor pavement.
So they're not tying into yours or something?
Correct. Other change, just little technical things, again, this is just a graphic presentation plan. This is the dumpster area.
Were the
These are
rain gardens
maintained.
added in the park?
Yeah, I'll get to that.
So
And
where was
just
the dumpster on?
It right here in the back off the pavement. It'll be a screen with, just stockade fence.
So is that's not in a resource area?
It is not, well, it is in, it is in the 75-foot upland resource area. you have a 25-foot wetland resource area, and then
Yeah.
a 70, so.
So it's within the adjacent upland resource area and
Yes.
within the 100-foot buffer zone.
Yes.
What
So-
are the, what's this orange dotted line? Is that the?
Okay, yeah, the solid line is essentially the 100-foot from the
Okay.
wetland. This red line, the dotted line, is what I consider the previous, it's developed footprint. It's
Oh.
right here, this is actual parking.
Okay.
This whole area right here is parking. I have one more exhibit to show.
Okay.
And then this whole area here is surrounding this well, and it's been maintained grass as long as I'm familiar with, as well as through here. And again, these are the access roads out to the village.
So this is the
gardens.
100-foot line?
Yes, this solid one is the 100-foot line.
It says 75, isn't it?
Well, it's 25.
Yes,
and then
75 is the
it's-
adjacent upland resource area.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the
It-
20.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
It ends up being the same as the 100-foot buffer zone in most cases. Under our bylaw, from floodplain, it would extend 100 feet, it'd be an adjacent upland resource area from the land subject to flooding. So there's some differences, but most cases it's
Okay.
going to coincide with the
While
100-foot
we're
buffer
talking
zone.
about that, I
Where did you say this goes out to?
The community gardens, and then there's also some community fields. And part of the original special permit way back when Flatley developed it, the original in the 80s was to maintain access to those towns. So we're doing that. So this is a gravel that's depicted as some sort of, but this is from this point, the pavement off. It's just a gravel road similar to what exists there
It's
today.
permeable.
Yeah.
Is this the entrance of the building?
That is a rear outdoor patio area. The entrance is this way from the,
Okay.
Is it a common practice to keep a dumpster that far away from the building?
it's, it's,
Before we get to it being in the buffer area.
Yeah, where was it before?
it wasn't shown before.
Ah.
So, that was a flat area. Again, this is all, right now, it's all paved all the way to this limit. So, but that's where I've proposed it now. This is the main eating area is inside here, so this is a delivery area.
So this is where trucks would deliver food?
Yes.
It seemed like it should be
There's a
closer
loading
than that.
dock or something like that?
It's not that significant, it would be more more like a box truck that might have a ramp coming out of it or something. It's not proposed as an actual loading dock for this facility. That can definitely be an item we can take a look at, that dumpster location.
So just a clarification, is this recreation area or?
Yeah, these are walking paths with a sitting area.
Okay.
And another thing I think we added, based on our discussions, this is like a post and rail fence that would delineate any kind of maintained area on this side versus, natural, to give a hard physical limit, to stop mowing and things like that.
So this is like a 6-foot fence?
No, just
Post and
a
rail.
post and rail.
Post, okay, right. Okay.
Just a visual
Okay.
barrier for maintenance purposes.
I'm just wondering about safety and recreation and just really probably isn't as important as what we're here to do, but.
So
is it
just
people,
did create one more.
They won't be able to get over the fence with their walkers.
I don't know, you gotta watch them, they find a way.
To move on to the stormwater discussion, the original proposal called this area a project of redevelopment. And it came up as a question, both by the commission and H&W. So one thing I did, and even planning board recommended some sort of demolition plan or identification of areas where pavement's being removed, pavement's being replaced. Is what defines a redevelopment project is if you do work in a footprint and you do not increase impervious area, the stormwater can be considered redevelopment and therefore meet the standards to the maximum extent feasible. So I took a look at, like, for instance, the pink area is new pavement on top of green space. This orange area is green space that was on top of pavement. And then the building split in half. This is new building on top of green space, and then this is new building on top of pavement. So it was
Counted
just.
up all the little boxes.
Yeah.
So, yep, and it ends up still about a net zero change of impervious to green space. But, and there is, you know, by identifying this line that meanders through, there is portions of building that are, you know, in a wooded area, so
So new
there's still.
development.
Yes. So what we've done.
By
and-
definition of
So
the
it's-
stormwater regulations.
Okay, so it's new development, it's not.
So
redevelopment.
under new development, you have to meet the stormwater standards.
Oh, so that's where all this came,
Yeah.
I got it now.
Yeah.
So, I did respond to H&W in a few weeks ago. They had a few additional comments, and those were wrapped up just yesterday. So we don't,
What do you mean?
they were completed on my end yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so,
they-
because I just sent out to the commission, because I forgot to send it with their packet on Thursday, just so you know, the latest comments from HW, which responded sort of to his comments earlier. I think I had sent out yours earlier, but that again goes back to September, I think, or whatever the dates I said it was. So they haven't had a chance to really look probably at her latest comments, and we haven't seen your response then?
Correct, yeah, I
Okay.
sent it electronically to you, but that's all it went. I actually have enough stuff.
Did I
that
see,
we
I
can-
only saw like, I got stuff yesterday from you, but I just want to be clear, because what I got
Just
from you,
yesterday, yeah.
yeah, I thought were plans, I didn't know there was a response, or you're saying
One
like
of the
just a response?
documents was this with a letter, and
Oh,
don't worry
okay.
about it. We'll-
Okay, because I did
we'll
try to open
officially-
them, and then I just kept saying site plan, so I was like, all right, I don't have time right
So,
now to look at those.
we're still in the review process of
Okay.
that, and part of the, again, I was trying to nail down all this planning board stuff before I resubmitted to them. So I appreciate that the notice is even still open at this point, but we have been working the entire time to get through this. So basically what, in this last submittal, I've resubmitted recharge calculations, water quality calculations for the entire lot, essentially, so that there's no, it'll meet the standards whether it's redevelopment or new construction. There's sizable recharge basins on site, and what I know of the original design, which I was not involved in back in the 80s, I'm comfortable saying there's more than enough recharge on site. There's a couple acres of, you know, ponds out there, not to mention all the wetlands behind it and all over, so. We've,
I was just gonna say, could you just briefly summarize what Horsley and Witten, what their recommendations were, and then what you did about them?
okay.
Yeah, just briefly.
They had some general comments just about how the hydrology was modeled, describing something as woods versus meadow, some technical things within the model.
Yeah, do you guys know that, like when you go through the modeling, like if you call something a certain kind of grass and it's really wooded, then your calculation's gonna be different. So, like, that's basically my level of experience when I look at those things.
It's more than
You
ours.
know, I know, but so you don't, you know, you get pages and pages of all the numbers and everything, but you can look at some of the basic stuff, which is why I'm just bringing it up, because several people are new here, you know, so you can at least look at those little things. When you get a stormwater report, you're not gonna probably go through all the calculations, right, because that's all modeled anyway, or computerized, but,
And this was one final thing this is the drainage area plan, so this entire site, where any work, there is a small portion that's completely unaffected by anything, so, you know, that was able to maintain, like, they requested that this parking area be split off from the rest, they requested that this external edge that just goes off be, so this is an updated plan, that
so
should meet
you
their
submitted it
requirements.
to Horsley and Witten too,
Uh,
or just to me?
To you, I
Okay.
have it, either I can take it back and mail it out tomorrow, or you can mail it, you know, I have a full set for them to take a look at.
Okay.
This information, so, so we do still expect some responses, so there's the modeling of the hydrology, this is one of my letters here. We did the test pits, there's a recharge system here. Did the test pits for that.
So you provided that data that they
Yeah.
asked for?
That's on there.
There was some labeling,
Yes, the plans have been gone through thoroughly.
which is why I think we needed these big plans, because that's why I almost didn't even look at it yesterday,
And
because
then
I can't
one-
see it on the computer.
One big improvement for the entire site, it's actually two major improvements, even for the existing pavement. All the, from drainage area 2, all this, and, you know, whatever was existing, and what's now proposed, drains out to the front basin, and we've proposed an entirely new water quality separation unit, another storm scepter, inline into that.
So you've got 2 storm scepters?
Yes, we have one for the parking itself to meet that requirement. And then we've also a complete upgrade for the whole site out here. And then the other major upgrade, even to existing parking, is we've proposed this entire big parking lot, just sheet flowed off into this drainage basin. We've proposed to put a curve down the side and have it drain to a rather large bioretention rain garden area. And one new detail that just got put on the plan is just a planting detail for that.
Did you add the height to the curb as they had been?
I changed it to a vertical concrete curb, so it will have 6 inches instead of I just had a Cape Cod berm run it down there. So the plants have been identified. It's
So there's a landscape plan?
It's clearly marked that it's on this.
on that
I
plan?
just threw it right onto this page.
So you got a
right?
detail on that, okay.
Do they look at what happens when we get 3 feet of snow?
Yeah, I mean, we've also, another thing we've identified is the snow removal areas. They're throughout the plan. You know, you can't plow up against this or nothing's gonna go anywhere, so. It's pretty good amount of area for it to flow in, so there shouldn't be an issue versus, it always had to get there anyways, so.
Can I just ask on that, so like, some kind of facility management document that if, you know, you have an operation maintenance plan for this, it would be part of, that it could be part of? I mean, we would typically include the operation and maintenance plan as part of the order of conditions to be recorded, but it would be nice if it really got in the hands of the facility manager, you know, somebody who's gonna, is there a way for that to happen?
Yeah, I mean, we will, that O&M plan will, that'll go along with this new rain garden, so.
Yeah. But so whoever gets the contract for the plowing, you know, I'm just wondering how they know about it, you know? I just didn't know if there's someone who's a facility manager, you know, that is in charge of that kind of stuff.
His office is right next to mine, so. You know, it'll have to get maintained or we're gonna have big problems. But we can, you know, if it goes into, it's in the order, the O&M for the order, so. And we'll
Is
have a
the SWIP gonna
long-term.
be required? Like it's over in the
Yes,
curb
yeah,
alteration,
so
so
we'll
it'll
have
be in
a-
the SWIP, which again, that's just during construction, right?
The O&Ms, they run, even once you're closed out, you have to continue to maintain.
Yeah, but so what typically happens is that we don't go back there necessarily, you know, and you get, and so that's why I was just wondering if it's like, if there's documents that the facility managers have, you know, that they have a book of, shelf of documents, you know, when you issue the contract, make sure you give the order of conditions to somebody, you know, or that kind of thing. I mean, things change, you know, so the same thing with the landscaping, you know, you don't want the people who are mowing to be dumping their, you know, grass clippings in certain places, right? So I'm just trying to figure out if there's a way to make sure we, you know, we who have all know about it and have thought about it, and it gets in an order of conditions and recorded, still of record, but if nobody else ever sees it or knows about it, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I mean.
So, well, we could
acknowledgement
require
that
in your order conditions, I'm just trying to throw it up, but we could require in the order conditions, you know, that the O&M be part of any contract, you know, documents for any plowing and landscaping or something like that, you know, and then it's on them, you know, to make sure it is. The other thing, just to say, I mean, and we said it in the very beginning, but for some of the members who are newer, you know, we haven't had we don't have a lot of commercial projects in town, so this is taken, you know, a little bit differently because it's not a residential subdivision where you can have all these different people. It is a business that, you know, should be able to maintain things or have some control over it, you know, and not the town taking it over, which, you know, we sometimes also have less control. Except for, we should have better, but.
Just going through, if there's any other,
I had kind of just did a quick list of them too, so I wouldn't have to go through the whole document. So you talked about illustrating the catchment areas, the height of the berm, more detail on the bioretention area they were looking for. Then there was one question actually that they said he didn't respond to. It was number 11 in the comments. And then she just, you know, their final recommendation, you know, was that, wait, I had some other stuff. Oh yeah, one of the things that I still have a problem with, and I sort of mentioned it to Mark in an email to him, is that they're still showing, they added riprap to the roof runoff discharge that's going out to the wetland. And I still have a problem even putting it there. You know, our whole point is to avoid any alterations. So to me, it just seems like if there is another place to recharge it that's not directly adjacent to the wetland, it's one less headache we have later for monitoring it, or they do. So I still am pushing him, with letting you know that I think that we should push that.
Where are we talking about on the map?
yeah, I can show you that one. It's actually right here. It's basically, again, it's at the edge of the original drainage basin, which we're now flagging to include as wetlands. But, you know, we've sized it to meet the calculation requirements for the stormwater standards. I haven't added more recharge and more subsurface infiltration at this point. Due two factors. Number one, the site does meet the requirements, and number two, the cost at this point.
Well, it meets the stormwater by design, but it doesn't meet our avoid, minimize, and mitigate if you say avoid, and there's another alternative.
So well, the current design is to still discharge it, but we've provided the calculations to support the riprap outflow. Number 11 was the pipe design, the concerns of the slopes of the pipe.
Oh, they were flat, fairly flat?
Yeah, I've revised some of them, and I do have new calculations that'll be submitted back to them. If you have the original letter, most of 12, this one was originally responded to.
Yep.
You weren't happy with the response?
So 13 was additional comments. We've the storm scepter 450I, that's a site detail that's been added to the plan. The storm tech system, the elevations of the stone, just the design of that has been made more clear on the plans through the details in the plan view. Some general drafting revisions were made to correct some labels that through the design process got left behind. This hay bale line where we were talking about has been revised to not be in the wetlands. And the riprap of the bioretention as well has been widened and less towards the wetlands.
So does that include then a level spreader? Is that then the design? That was their last
Yes.
comment?
Yep.
Okay.
So that.
You voted for the comments then, or
Correct, but we are still, literally, this is the set I read. I finished up my response yesterday, and we'll be getting that back out to them for
So one of the questions that Janet Barbadero, who's the consultant that Rosalie Whitten had sort of put out there to me was, would it be, initially when we were putting the contract together, would it be helpful for her to attend a meeting? Was one question. And then we kind of said, oh, we think you can kind of do it back and forth at this stage and we'll see. And then she also put out, would it be helpful for there to be a meeting between the town planner, myself, and Mark, and try to make sure we kind of have gone over everything together. So I guess I just sort of throw that out there, whether at this stage, just knowing what you know, basically we don't have any more funds from them yet for further review. So we can ask Horace and Whitten to do it. I'm sure they're happy to. Conda needs to provide us more funds for the contractual services. And I'm just wondering what we think those contractual services might be. Just doing another review, which is what she's done in the past, and giving the written one? Or do you think there's any need or desire to have her attend one of our meetings, or to have a meeting between sort of this staff?
So she wouldn't even be able to respond to what his response now, is that what
Right.
you're saying?
Yeah, we only had the first two comment reviews budgeted for.
Oh, I see.
So she wouldn't even be able to say, yeah,
Yeah.
you did everything we asked you to.
Right.
No, she wouldn't review it.
Well, I think it would be great to have.
No, she wouldn't review it. It's her consulting time.
Yeah, I know, that's
so,
right. What we're
No,
saying
okay.
is that, right,
Okay, I
is it
understand.
necessary to pay her more?
Yeah, we have no issue. It's the scope, I think. It's just to finish reviewing, respond to this set,
Right.
Yeah,
or
definitely.
meetings, or...
Yeah. I don't have a sense of whether to say, I think meetings are necessary. I would like input from you.
Well, I think it's gone, relatively well. It's just if it would shorten it to meet, that's the only thing. If instead of going back and forth with comments another time or two, and since I haven't looked at his comments either, I don't really know that. So I'm kind of throwing that out even to Marcus. If it would make it faster, to sit and meet with Erica, myself, and Janet, and go through the comments and make sure we're kind of all at the point where it doesn't need to go back and forth anymore, that might be save, and still she'd have to probably provide something in writing, but that may save us another couple of back and forths. But having not looked at them, I don't know whether you feel that that's at all needed or not. I'm just throwing it out as that's another option she's offered,
Yeah, to, wrap up the review this stuff again, as well as, 4 hours or something like that for a meeting. Okay?
Yeah. I think that would be beneficial
I'm pretty comfortable with the
possibly.
response,
Yeah.
and we've worked through it.
Yeah.
So either way, if you want to add in whatever it takes for a meeting.
Well, we could do it that way, that she, maybe, and I'd have to throw it back to her, but if we did it, that she reviews what you've prepared, yesterday. And if it seems like her comments are gonna still be something that's gonna require another back and forth, that maybe then we'd see whether or not it would be a meeting, instead, if that would be helpful.
Okay.
So maybe before she writes her comments, but she does a review, maybe she'd be willing to do that, just say, I think there's still a couple of things that would be beneficial to me to hammer it out.
Okay. So there's that, and should we deal with now the location of the dumpster and that area of riprap that is in the research area, or?
Yeah, I think we should. I was just gonna, she did give me a couple of cost estimates, so just while you talk about that, I'll look for that in an email.
Okay.
I don't remember what she had said, but anyway. You
So
just-
what are the alternatives then for moving the dumpster and what was the name of that riprap area? I forget what you called it.
It's the roof runoff
Roof
outlet.
Roof
So
runoff outlet.
and it is only roof runoff, so it's, there's no pavement area, there's treatment of the runoff is not really an issue at that point. That's one of the reasons why I did it that way, so.
Yeah, but you get what I was saying, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
And actually, we've proposed a, we did propose a holding tank for irrigation in that line. So that would, it's not necessarily recharge, But, and once that's full, so, you know, say we get a big rainstorm, it fills up, it's just gonna flow in and flow out. But it'll be there available for irrigation and things like that, so, you know, it'll get used up. So it'll have limited storage to lessen that runoff, but we have not proposed any recharge in this area. Another reason is it's relatively close, and groundwater is, at that point, is pretty high. It's, I didn't dig a test pit in that particular area to analyze groundwater, but the wetlands are.
You
pretty far away.
recharged one section of it out in the front of the building though, right?
Just the new parking area. In
I
this,
thought, no, the roof runoff, I thought some of it got recharged. I thought in the, like with one of the first revisions that you did was that some of the roof runoff was getting recharged to the front. That's not right?
No.
You never took any of the roof runoff? So all the roof runoff still goes to that spot?
Yeah, we added the tank for irrigation, but that, I never proposed any.
So is there an alternative?
I mean, we could, one thing I was thinking of, you could literally just replace this outlet pipe with a perforate, almost kind of like a trench drain, an underground drain. It could do double duty and just provide some recharge. You know, that's one thing I was thinking of is just, you know, make this a perforated drain through that area and 2 feet wide or 4 feet of stone around it. It's a pretty sizable infiltration trench, if that might be a, you know, there wouldn't, I could put a quantity to that, what the recharge area would be, but it wouldn't be sized to, it definitely wouldn't recharge.
And then where would the perforated pipe end?
It would ultimately continue to go to where it is today, but, you know, a smaller storm, you know, it might recharge most of the water before it even gets to the outlet. It would just continue, like potentially this section right here to where it changes direction, and it would go back to solid, just to, as an something like an overflow. You know. That, versus, you know, these are the plastic, whatever form of underground subsurface drainage you would do. You know, these are those chambers where the water comes in and just leaches out the bottom.
But so like some kind of an infiltration bed somewhere else, you know, isn't something that's doable? You think it has to discharge to that point because of the groundwater elevations?
It would have to have an overflow at least. You know, you could size something. I don't know if you would want to do it under the pavement, but I mean, you can make it as big as you want, but you still, those things, you want an overflow, because if there's not an overflow, you get a massive event, it'll just back right up. So you want some sort of outlet, but yeah, I mean, it could be sized so that it could handle the 2-year, 10-year, and then overflow beyond that out to the wetlands. I mean, a subsurface system needs an overflow to an outlet somewhere. So you'd still have that.
Again, I'm just used to dealing with roof house, you know,
Yep.
and we don't typically get that in the designs, you know, they get a
Yeah,
bed, you know.
they'll just have 4 dry wells at each corner.
Yeah.
It's just, this is 25,000 square feet versus 1,500 or 2,000, you know. Even this system as well has an overflow that it continues on to the
So if you
basin
did the
area.
perforated trench, my only, again, not really a fear so much, but just thinking long-term is that would it potentially, you know, settle down, and then you've got the landscapers who are finding it's too wet to mow, and then you've got, you know, those issues that come along sometimes when things clog up.
Yeah, I mean,
So I'm just sort of throwing that out there, because I mean, it sounds good in theory, but then I just wonder in the long term if there's any issues with it.
yeah, I feel, other than requiring the outlet at the edge of the wetland. There's so much, as far as just recharge itself, there's so much on site. That's why the groundwater is so high. It's because of all the recharge. You know, would it be better to create a small 4-bay, you know, which is more than the riprap? You know, a small settling could be designed pretty much to meet the regs for a 4-bay.
Would there be room? I thought it's like right off the edge of the.
Yeah, I mean, there's this, you know, we're proposing not to disturb anything more than to get that, but, and again, this is all grass right here coming around. So there's all this area to work with. We could, you know.
How is that marked in the field? Is it marked at all in any way where the outlet is? I can't remember if you had that point shown. I'm just wondering if we looked at it again, especially newer people, if they just wanted to see.
I believe this stake here where the hay bales turn was staked at that time, so I don't know if it should still be there. But it's right at the end where the wetlands turn, you know, and it's 5 feet off the pavement, so it's pretty easy to find. But, you know, if
and
more
then
of
there's a wetland flag not very far, so there's a flag number that you could see, right?
Yeah, again, I don't know if those are there as well at this point. Physically, in the,
yeah, hopefully
they were surveyed
yeah.
While they were there, but you know, they get chewed off.
What flag number is it, just so if anybody wanted to drive over?
B3 is the one right at the corner. So right between B3 and B4. You know, more of a splash pad versus the outlet, the way this is designed. Almost like a check dam or some sort of, you know, further coming back this way, obviously not further into the design. And again, this was, when the building was built, this was the basin and the wetlands were back here. So now everything's being considered. You know, it's a nice area back, so. And just between the improvements that, you know, this is all newly treatment, and basically the entire site has treatment upgrades, so.
I know when you were, Mark was meeting with the design review committee earlier tonight. I guess I'm still just going back on this O&M and stuff, and sort of thinking again, you know, you've got the riprap, so obviously at some point somebody's got to look at that, and is it functional? How is the site being divided up in terms of responsibility then for like the bioretention area? I mean, it's going in part because you're doing this proposal, this new activity, and it's an improvement from the existing pavement, but is that going to be like Bolton Office Park then? Who's responsible to maintain that? And like, is it, and it's going to be a different entity that would be doing plowing and snow storage for the assisted living?
Just in general, we do not have a specific user for the assisted living facility. We need to get special permit and this permit in place to really sell the whole idea to a specific user. And it is being subdivided. So whether or not Condyne builds it and leases to this user, or they just, it'll be 2 parcels, sell the parcel. I mean, my understanding when it's part of an O&M, those requirements to maintain that every year, you know, go along with that piece. And if it's Condyne property, it would be Condyne. If it's assisted living, it would be assisted living. Just it would get maintained, basically. Other than
Okay with the roof on that one, or what?
Well, I think I'd still take a look at it and explore any other thoughts possibly with the consultant and see if she has any other ideas. So she had essentially said, like $500 for a meeting, and the review would be like between 8 and 1,000. So I don't know if you want to suggest, you know, they put up another 1,500, and at this point, if we don't
That's
do the
fine.
meeting, then, you know, that can go be returned, or, okay, so when you can provide me the check, I can forward, or, you know, get her
I'll
the stuff.
Send you a check and send her the plans on the same day.
Okay, that'd be good,
so.
okay. So I haven't really spent any time reviewing it in any other way. I guess, you know, I did sit in on the design review committee, partly because they were in the meeting room beforehand. I just wanted to get the computer up and running, because it takes a while. But I also just, if there was any other thoughts and comments that they
I'll
had.
show it off since it's sitting there.
Yeah.
It's just a shot of the entrance, and they're the architect guys, so.
Yeah, primarily, but they also review some of the site stuff, like lighting and signage and location of things and screening of things and so forth. So, you know, I didn't know that the dumpster was in the resource area. We talked about that a little bit with them, but I did mention the bioretention area to them, you know, because they have on that committee another person who's, I think, a landscape architect who has a lot of landscape experience. So they were going to look at it, but it looked as though, you know, they had a lot of planting, a lot of screening. Now, is that landscape plan that you gave them as part of the package here?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a landscape plan, with some pretty significant plantings throughout the whole project. This is in addition to that detail to the project, so that's on a separate sheet. In general, they were happy with that too, so.
Yeah, so they had
Any
some minor suggestions without even having studied it much, just like, you know, you're gonna have benches out there, you know, you're probably gonna wanna shade them so that somebody can sit under them.
I could see like a tree, and put these smaller trees, I'm not a landscape guys, you know, move a shade tree over to this sitting area in this city, you know, move some things around to.
I've heard some landscape guys say that they could design property so that you never needed to water it, that you could control where the shade was. Sounds like magic to me.
Nothing was going this way.
So Mark, since I don't have any other comments, not having looked at any of the final changes here, and the board's just seeing it, how long do you think we should continue? Yeah, like, where are you with the planning board then?
The planning board, the design, we had a planning board a couple weeks ago. A couple board members were ready to vote on it, basically, but the design review board had not submitted their report. Now it turns out the design review board is concerned that since there's not a specific user, colors might change, or so. Perfect world, I'd like to see the planning board approve it tomorrow night with a
Are you on
condition.
their agenda tomorrow night?
Yes, with a condition that design review board approves it. And I don't know if that's possible. You know.
I had sort of thrown out as to the design review and to Erica too, but, you know, just there could be some broad conditions that the planning board might consider.
So,
You know, but again, I'm not speaking for them in any way. I just sometimes, instead of just saying be approved by the design review committee, I mean, if it was coming my way, I would say, oh, well, you know, but I'd still like to see that, you know, the plantings stay essentially as it is, you know, or, you know, there may be
if
some
anything,
factors, you know.
more is gonna, more trees are gonna be on the plant than less trees.
Yeah.
So, I'd be comfortable with 2 weeks if you have a meeting in 2 weeks.
We do, right, November 4th, which is election day, so that could be a problem for you depending on if you're campaigning for someone or.
I thought you were gonna make an assisted living comment on election day.
I don't know, that's fine.
Since the high traffic area.
Well,
Yeah, I'll do it.
well, usually they can get buses.
Yeah, it's a big old.
They voted very high proportion.
All right,
So anyway, we do have two hearings, or two meetings, they're both requests for determinations at 7 and 7:15 on November 4th.
just 7:50. Looks like that will
One-
take 15 minutes or 30 minutes?
Of the ones that we have, they should be 15 minutes, the two that we have.
Yeah.
You free that?
Is that good?
Okay.
So do I just need to make a motion to continue?
I don't need,
Or you don't
just,
need to-
you can just say we're gonna continue the meeting on
Okay,
it.
so we're gonna continue the meeting on November 4th at 7:30. So no motions necessary with all this.
No, not yet.
Fantastic.
Okay. And I guess the only caveat too, maybe we should think of is whether Horsley and Witten's gonna have had time to review it by then.
Yeah.
So
Um,
hopefully, I mean, she's been pretty prompt, so long as she
yeah.
gets everything
And she'll
pretty
get
promptly.
everything by Friday. No, Thursday. Tomorrow's Wednesday, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it'll go out overnight to her tomorrow. And,
well, we've been continuing
Wednesday.
meeting to meeting for a while, so if we have
Say
to,
if
we
we
have to
push
do
it
that.
again, we push it again.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a timing, so nobody else, man.
It looks like it's getting closer.
Do have a site plan review by the selectmen on the 6th.
So, yeah,
I don't know
whatever.
how involved they get. Going through a lot of iterations through the planning board, I would hope they are pretty comfortable at this point, so.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, so, well, you know, if we get through our issues, if Horsley and Witten's able to do that, then even if they have some comments, usually we like to keep the meeting open while we draft an order, so,
Okay.
you know, we would still try to continue just to, in case anything came up when we were drafting.
Okay.
Is that fine with you? These colored plans, so I don't know exactly what's in your packet, but it would be great to have those too. I don't even, if you.
Yeah,
I mean,
I can.
technically, whatever you show at the meeting, you know, it's supposed to be part of the filing, I don't know.
Okay, I can, I don't have a hard copy today, but I can email it and then also
Just
bring
because it's helpful to
some
see it
next
all
time.
marked up
There
and
is
colored like that.
both sets. There is the one with the demo plan where I tried these
Yeah,
areas.
yeah.
That is included. But I can definitely get you a PDF of it, and
Okay.
I can send her these two plans as well.
Okay, so are you leaving us with anything?
I'll leave you with your set
Okay.
of plans and this,
Okay,
and then I have her set ready to go.
okay.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Seems to be a trend.
Okay, next up is Vickery's, 539 Wadside Hill Road, follow-up from the site visit. Yeah, I know, it was like that for a while. Introduce yourself again for the record, because we might have some people here.
I'm Mickey Marcus, so I'm a wetland scientist with New England Environmental. I'm here for Jen Vickery's farm site. Jen is working tonight, she's teaching, so she couldn't be here. So at the last meeting, the commission did not believe an agricultural exemption applied to her property, which we disagree with. But Jen had suggested, and you suggested, going out looking at her land, seeing if a permit was needed, and if so, whether you thought an RDA or notice of intent would be required for her horse shelter.
Correct.
It's just, I guess, your discussion and follow-up. I don't know how many of you actually
Yeah,
got to
it
go
was,
to her site.
Let's see, we
I
had
was
four of
not able to
us.
go.
I was
Four of
there.
us went together on Sunday, and did the rest of you have time to?
I went on that Wednesday, so
You
2
didn't
days
get
after.
just about- it's okay, so 5 of us went. And we basically set out the entire property, starting at the horse shed and that paddock area with that stream going through it. And we noted that as described to us, anywhere, almost anywhere you put that horse barn, if you were to move it, it would, you know, it's just on a line parallel to the stream. So would be difficult to get it further from the stream, except for that little nook that was close to the driveway. But then there might be issues with the being too close to the neighbor's property. But anyway, So we continued on and saw the rest of the property, and the street, we followed, I guess I should just refer to the map here. This is a 2009 map. We entered here, this was the big, I guess you call it horse ring, where they, I don't know what you
Paddock,
call
yeah.
it. Yeah, but it
Turnout,
was,
yeah.
is that what you call it, a turnout? And this is the stream going through here, and so I think this is the paddock in question, and the shed would be roughly
Exactly,
over there.
that's right.
So we followed this along up here, and we noted the stream was more vegetated up here with some like scattered trees and maybe a few shrubs, but it was actually kind of almost looked like mowed or grazed grass over there too. I didn't think to ask her what her management was over there, and I wasn't sure if any of the animals had access, so I don't really know what was keeping the grass as opposed to getting woody stuff, completely revegetating it. And I think we saw 2 or 3 horses, full-size horses, and 1 pony. Or 3 or
and 1 pony?
what?
2 horses and 1 pony?
2 horses and 1 pony, and I'm not sure how many goats.
That's what we saw. But I don't
Three or
know.
4. 3 or 4 goats,
Mhm.
3 goats, and 2 pigs that I think were in this area here. We walked through the yard. We noticed that this was very steep and rocky over here, and not really suitable for horses to.
Can you just say, is that like east of, oh,
Is Northcote this one?
I think so, that's,
Yeah.
I think, the north arrow.
So on the northeast, okay. So in the northeastern part of the property, it was very steep and rocky. We walked through the yard and we saw this little pond there that Jennifer said was man-made. And it was sort of vegetated in a similar way to the stream up in here. It had some big trees around it, and yet it sort of appeared like it was mowed or grazed. It wasn't completely vegetated like would happen, you would expect normally. And I'm not sure exactly where it is on this map, but there was like an area of a lot of sort of shrubbery. It was mostly cleared of trees. She said there had been a dump there before, and she had cleaned out the trash, and she was thinking of at some point in the future clearing that area and to use that perhaps for animals too. And we just noted to her that she would need to run that by the commission also, because that was near this pond. So that's it, and I guess the goal, it was, what we're here to talk about today is whether she needs an RDA or an NOI, request for determination of applicability or notice of intent. Is that a correct summary? Anybody want to add anything to that? Subtract? So what do you all think about it? I mean, how does this work? Do we recommend whether she should submit an RDA or NOI, or does she just do?
Well, I think the point was to visit the site and see whether you thought an RDA might be suitable or enough, or whether or not it's something that you're gonna need more information on than what you'd get normally, or what you'd want to, whether you'd want to condition any kind of approvals that you might grant, or if you, because at this point, it's difficult again, because it's after the fact,
Right.
so whether you would deny it, that's still an option for you, but you still need to just figure out how you're going to get the information. So of course, she kind of has the right to file a request for determination, but we're kind of working through potential violation, right? I mean, if you've decided you don't feel it meets the exemption, so really we just want to get something in before you, so you don't have to take enforcement action. Sorry about that. So a request for determination, typically you just use it when it's not that close to the resource area, when you don't think there's going to be any impact, when you don't think you're going to have any conditions that you need to use, or that it's not in any resource area, that it's not part of.
So when you
Yeah, sorry.
when you expect to make a negative determination, that's when you would.
If you expected that you'd be able to issue a negative determination, meaning that they don't need a notice of intent, then you might say to her, yeah, you could just file a request for determination. I mean, people come into my office often and say, I'm not really sure what I need, So, in the case when they haven't done the work already, I'm always like, well, here are your options, and if you file the request, you could be asked to file a notice. So if it's a time-sensitive project, then you should just go to the notice, because I can't really tell you for sure, right? So that's kind of how we're at.
Here, it's not so much time sensitive in that she's looking to get the project done, but she wanted to have the project done because she wants to be able to stable the horses. And so I think you guys need to decide, is there any action that she needs to take immediately now because you've seen the site, that there's a concern? Or can it go through a notice of intent process or a determination process, and you wait to get more information so you can make, further evaluate it?
Well, I mean, so there are two things then. One is, what would be more appropriate, the RDA or the NOI? And the other, regardless of which route she chooses, does she need to do anything to stabilize the area in the meantime, correct?
Right, or right, so, or move the shed, is that something that you just don't feel it can stay there?
Okay.
And so it needs to be moved.
I get you.
And do that sort of more as an enforcement type of thing, like, in the meantime, you've got to move this, while you're filing, because again, it's after the fact, so it's difficult, so you're.
Right, I guess I'll just say my thoughts and you guys can all. So I think from my perspective, the fact that the stream was completely devegetated, it was mostly mud there, I mean, there wasn't even much grass, completely devegetated, and although there were no big piles of manure, you could see that unavoidably the horses had tracked some along and through, across the stream as they walked through the area. That to me was a much bigger concern than the shed itself. And
except that the shed is like a congregation point. I mean, it's just going to concentrate them.
Right. So, but I think that the concern is the concern is what's going on with the stream, and if, as a result of that concern, she may have to move the shed at some point, I guess. I mean, the shed itself, in terms of runoff, I guess, isn't what I thought was so important. It was more the fact that
it's a secondary
the animal,
effect of the presence of the shed.
The presence of the horses continuing to use that area and trampling it out, tracking manure through it, the stream remaining devegetated. That's what I thought was the major concern.
I just have one question about the constraints in terms of the timeline that we're talking about. So if she were going to do a notice of intent, and I don't know a lot about stabling horses, but is there a time constraint given that winter's coming and they need protection, the horses need protection?
Sure. She's concerned, the reason the shed is there was for winter protection of the horses. Generally, a notice of intent is a more complicated filing. So when you file a determination, the determination is usually issued by the commission within 21 days of the filing. And it's just a more streamlined process. So normally a small project like somebody replacing a deck or a shed or something like that would normally go through a determination process. The notice of intent just has it's a more aggressive filing, it's like what you just saw just now. So it would normally have more components to it.
But if you're going to inevitably have to get to the NOI stage, it might be more streamlined to skip the RDA.
Yeah, exactly. So that's exactly what Carol was saying. So like sometimes when people say, I'm not sure what to file, you can file an RDA and you say, you know what, this is too complicated a project, you need to file a notice of intent, so why do the RDA? I will tell you that I haven't heard what everybody says, but I think, if the commission says you need to file a notice of intent for the shed, she will probably instead file an RDA to determine whether there really is an agricultural exemption or not. Push the point with you and provide, the town agricultural committee to come out here, get the DEP involved, because she thinks that it's really an agricultural project. And so like what you're talking about is kind of like controlling a site that she's already been using for horses, and it's been used for horses for over 10 years. So I think she would be reluctant to have conditioning on an existing use.
When you say an agricultural exemption, can you point to specific regulation? Because, I mean, I looked through it,
Right.
and so how do you say that this fits that?
Yeah, well, there's, I mean, we talked about this last time, but there's really two pieces. One is raising animals and having a commercial enterprise. And from what Jen says is she feels like she meets those requirements. And she has documentation that we didn't go through, like her banks and her statements and her transactions. So I guess what I'm saying is you've already, at the last meeting, you had this discussion and you voted, you think, yeah, we like what you're doing, but we're not sure that you're an agricultural exemption, in which case you come under the review of the commission. You should file a permit for your shed. And, the reason for your site visit was, does the shed warrant, a notice of intent or a request for determination of applicability? My preference would be to have a determination, which is an easier process. You can add conditions to that determination. It's just an easier form for a simple building. But if you think that you want more, and all of you decide, you feel like a notice of intent is warranted, my recommendation to Jen is to first file the determination on the agricultural issue. And
I think part of the difficulty is that under the bylaw, the resource area is the first 25 feet.
That's good.
And so, if I remember correctly, it was said that it was about 17
About
feet
17
off,
feet, that's
and
right.
so therefore it's in a wetland resource area under the bylaw.
That's
And
good.
so I think, I would just think that that becomes a little bit more difficult in allowing something within that resource area under the determination process. Because you're limited sort of to the choices, when you check off those boxes, So it's harder to kind of fall within the scope of it not having any impact. It's difficult to come up with a negative, I would think, on a determination, especially under the bylaw. That's the problem I would see.
Yeah.
unless you issue variance under the bylaw.
What do you mean?
I don't even know if we have provisions for variance under the bylaw.
Basically, every bylaw has a provision for some sort of variance for somebody who can't meet whatever your standard is.
Yeah, but that, I don't think she has proven that at this point.
Yeah. In which case, you'd say, well, move the shed, move it.
Well, I think that's the situation I was sort of also going towards, is that if there's something she needs to do immediately, like, if we're saying, as Karen points out, congregating and having animals over in that spot is not protecting the resource area, and which we're calling resource area, is there something she needs to do immediately? Does she need to move it somewhere else that's going to have less impact?
Have you explored the options of moving it?
Within that particular paddock where she was hoping the horses would spend more time in the winter, she can move it anywhere in that paddock, but it's all within 25 feet
Yeah, I mean,
of
that's
that
why
center
I
channel.
say the
So-
issue isn't so much the shed and the runoff from the shed, it's the animals use of that area.
Right, but I'm just saying, the animals are going to continue to use it. I mean, you're right, if you took the shed and put it in a different pasture, there would be less congregation, but that's still a horse pasture that's not going to go away.
Well,
If it's not used, if it's somehow cordoned off,
Yeah.
or perhaps there's something that goes over it, then it wouldn't be used if it's somehow
Yeah, and I guess what, I understand.
as an option.
Absolutely, it's an option.
Would a bridge mitigate it?
What's that?
Would a bridge
Right.
with a curve mitigate
Yeah,
it?
I mean, it's her job, I guess, to come up with any
just have
possible
trying to
mitigation.
understand.
No,
But
that's-
it
So it's not our
seems,
job to recommend,
right,
and that's not what we're doing.
and I just say that it seems that it would be possible to put a fence along it and a bridge for the horses to walk over so that it could revegetate.
So I guess what you're suggesting is that you abandon that half-acre
Well,
pasture.
I don't know if anyone's suggesting that definitely yet. At this point, I think we're still focused on whether or not there's an immediate action that should be taken
or in addition to the filing. And I would also just point to DEP as you raise it. I mean, DEP has provided, and I gave them all to Jen, the importance of having vegetative buffer strips. You know, and so whether it's a good farming practice or not, I mean, that's DEP's policy, is to have vegetative buffer strips, and there seems to be no vegetative buffer strip associated with that, except for, as you said, maybe upstream a little bit.
Yeah, and it wasn't clear. It wasn't clear, you know, how that was managed right now. But it seems, right, so I guess one point is that we didn't think she met agricultural exemption, and even if she did, that doesn't mean she can do anything there. It doesn't mean you completely devegetate and trample a stream. So, you know, it's hard for me to see this not going to a notice of intent, but she wants to.
Right, so again, you know, you're at the point of saying, okay, so you're gonna let them just file it whenever, you know, or are you at the point that, you know, this is an after the fact filing and there should be some timetable and setup, you know, whether it's through enforcement action or by agreement, or I don't know, you know.
Yeah.
But
I think we should enforce a time frame because it's after the fact.
For the
yeah,
notice of
I'd like to
intent.
try to avoid an enforcement order. I mean, I'm sure that we can come to some agreement with her. I mean, we want to work with her.
Well, that's why I'm here. Yeah, that's why I
So-
came to the last meeting, is to.
But I think
But if they're
we're
gonna
trying-
if they're gonna come to, with an RDA to argue the agricultural exemption part, is there anything you need to do immediately then, you know? Because if the concerns are that they're congregating closer because where the shed's located, then maybe the shed needs to be removed, you know, until you come to that
Right. Or
conclusion.
horses not use that area. Wherever she wants to put them, she can put them. If that means moving the shed, it means moving the shed. But I guess I would see as the important thing to do is to stop use for now until we get to the notice of intent.
And I will tell you that that's been a horse pasture for the 10 years she's owned
But-
it and
but-
previous.
But
So-
it hasn't been completely devegetated. We got maps, showed that there was actually grass in there and looks like maybe some shrubbery.
And these are all off Oliver.
And yeah, I got another one off Google Earth also. I don't know if you want to go through those.
Yeah,
but it doesn't look-
I've seen it, and I know that it's been used, you know, as her farm.
Yeah, it's
and
mud now
pasture.
though, and there doesn't seem to be any record that the past owner went to the Conservation Commission anyway. So it doesn't, they didn't necessarily meet the agricultural exemption. They never asked anybody. They did whatever they did.
Sure.
And
But
she's
you're right.
they had 2 horses. She has a lot more animals, there's a lot more density, a lot more trampling, and what used to be grass and perhaps some shrubbery is now mud. So
So because there's an intermittent stream there, would the town ever require some type of operation and maintenance plan if that area is being used as pasture? I mean, when we
Do
went
you mean
there.
the commission?
Yeah, the commission or,
Yeah,
I guess the
everybody,
commission.
yeah.
So we went there and it was a relatively clean site. It was clean. And she says that she gets the manure out on a daily basis. Is there something in writing that says, you know, I need to do this, I need to follow this?
There's no livestock regulations in
There are
the
not.
town, no.
Even with wetlands?
The wetlands, again, this is the first time we've seen the site, so I don't feel like I have enough information to say that, again, it's been a horse paddock and pasture area for 10 years, meeting agricultural exemptions. I mean, so if somebody created one and they've caused it to become overused and it's impacting the resource area, you know, then the commission has jurisdiction, you know, and you need to take action to say you need to file, you need to stop using it, you need to stabilize it, you know, whatever the requirements you feel are appropriate. But there's nothing that's out there that says, I mean, other than the DEP's guidelines, which I've said, you know, they recommend vegetative buffer strips as wide as possible, you know, along streams and wetland areas.
So other than keeping the horses out, what would be necessary to stabilize that? For, you know, until she gets to the notice of intent.
Well, it was pretty flat, right?
Yeah.
If you probably want it seeded, I guess, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, we don't know the results of what's gonna happen after the notice. Does it make sense to have her seated and then have that area eventually be used anyway.
Well, you're looking at, you're talking about, if they were to, say he files a request for determination, the earliest we're gonna see it is, I guess, let's see, so we're, the second meeting in November, probably, if they got it in by next week, right? And that's not hard to get a request in for next week. And so then if you guys change your mind and you say it meets an agricultural exemption, then everything goes away. If you have the same opinion that you seem to have, which I don't disagree with, then where are you? Then you're in the middle of November, then you're talking December, and then we're talking when you're going to get a notice of intent. It is more complicated, it requires more time to put it together. So I just don't know really what you're going to, if you just say don't let the horses on it, I don't think that's stabilizing the site.
So don't let the horses use it and seed it?
Well, I mean, so how are you going to enforce that? The only way you're going to enforce that is either they agree, and Jennifer's not here to agree to it, and it sounds like she's not really interested in agreeing that way. So then you'd have to take enforcement action.
Yeah.
So you can wait until they file a request, and in November, at the end of November, you could see whether they present sufficient information to change your mind, or you can just say the shed, enforcement action. Sorry, I mean, I don't know that you have any other recourse. You notice a violation.
Well, it's too late to seed it once you get to November. Right?
I know, that's what I'm saying. Is that if you want to stabilize it, then you need to take action.
Yeah, I would just add something. So I don't know if this, sways you, but I think you've seen Jennifer's operation. It's a very low-key farm. I don't know if when you were there, the volunteers were there. I think that if you take this kind of action that you're discussing, like say you can't use this paddock, it kind of will drive her out of town. It'll drive her to find some other location for her farming up, place where she's more welcome. And I think part of the reason she ended up in Bolton was the right to farm, right to agricultural community. She bought it because there were previous horses there. And I think you just have to look in retrospect. There's a shed with no foundation built on the ground. And if if you're interested in vegetated buffers, there are ways to put buffers in on the downstream end, but it's basically a horse pasture that's been a horse pasture, and it's not a new project. And a lot of these farmers get in trouble with comms when they change the use, they do something different. That's not the case here. It's been the same use, the same issues since she's had the property.
Similar use, but the density of animals is higher and the devegetation is much worse if you look at the maps. So
And the introduction of the shed is new too.
It's brand new. That's right. Exactly.
And the fact that you don't know that it's going on and it's not good for the wetland, and now you have to take some action.
Right. Just because somebody made a violation before doesn't mean we should allow it to continue.
What did she do in the past before the shed? I mean, did the horses just roam outside?
There's a barn. There's a barn, and the horses were outside. She felt that with the animals that she had, the animals sort of go through. They're there. They get adopted. So the animals that she has now, she felt like she needed to protect them for the winter. So there's a barn that you saw, and that's where the goats stay. And there's at least one horse that stays in the barn.
And she wouldn't be willing to go back to that sort of setup?
I think it's possible. She just thought it was better for the animals to have it's like a three-sided open shelter for the horses that would just protect them from the winter.
Are there no agricultural enterprises in town with animals in streams? I mean, what do people do?
Yeah, so we were talking about, even if you do meet an agricultural exemption, you can't just do anything to the wetlands, and I don't know the details, but I know there's the NRCS helps people make farm plans to minimize their impact on the wetlands. That's if you are a farm. And I should just mention that the AgCom's definition of a farm, for the purposes of the right to farm bylaw, differs from the state's definition of a farm for the purposes of wetlands. So the AgCom says you're a farmer if you just have these animals, right? You have any kind of livestock, even fur-bearing animals.
Well, I'm just curious about a place like Century Mill Stables, which
Yeah.
is, they keep a lot of horses there. And there is a stream near there. It turns out, I think that they're all on one side of it.
Yeah,
Well,
there's
what
a
if-
road in between.
Uh,
You're talking Century Mill Road.
There are horses on both sides.
On both sides, yeah, barns on
Oh.
one side, stables on the other, yeah.
Yeah. But the horses don't cross the stream.
And is
They're
there
adjacent-
vegetation along
They're
the stream?
adjacent, they're adjacent to it.
Okay, is it
There's
vegetation?
lots of
Yeah, okay.
vegetation. But let's suppose the stream ran through an enterprise like Century Mill Stables.
Mm.
What, would they not be allowed to have the horses cross the stream? Would they have to keep them
They
75 feet
really,
away from
you know,
it?
they still have to not be impacting the functions and values of the wetland, right? I mean,
Okay.
they, for the most part, I mean, so, again, having a vegetated buffer strip might be sufficient, you know, and maybe they have a crossing area. I mean, I guess
I'm just
I haven't
wondering
looked
what-
at enough, I
what
haven't
kinds
looked
of
at enough
things-
actual farm operations that are horse-related, you know, to say. The only other one we had experience with was one where the commission required them to stabilize the paddocks, you know, and the horses had to find other turnouts while they did that, you know, and.
Was
and
that Tui?
Yeah,
Was that Tui?
yeah.
Right. Is that what we did? We told him to get the horses?
Well, he had to come up with a plan, you know, so that he
Right.
could stabilize them, and so he
Right.
came up with some other places that he would
That
have
site
them.
was much worse than this, but yeah.
Well, that's because you saw that site in the spring. If you saw
Yes.
this site in the spring, you may have a different
Yes.
opinion.
But just to finish what I was saying, the state's definition of a farm, according to my understanding, according to my reading, I'm not no expert on this, but is that the animals or the product, whatever agricultural product you're making has to be produced on the site. Okay, hers or not, they're adopted animals, and the issue is important because if it's not produced on site, then a supermarket's a farm. Okay, and any animal shelter is a farm. I mean, they had to, you know, it's just to define what agriculture really is, and it's not the same as what our ag code is for the purposes of the right to farm bylaw. It's two different things. So.
And the state's law is, you know, one of the things that you'll see this, you know, anywhere you drive is that it's very lenient for agricultural uses. So you'll see cornfields in a wetland. You'll see farmers till through wetlands. They can't, if they change the use or do something different, then it requires a review. But if you're basically farming, agriculture, maintaining ditches is fine, but you can't like dig them deeper or drain the surrounding lands differently. That's when all the farmers, you know, trip into the Wetlands Protection Act. But if you basically are doing your business as usual, you can work in and around wetlands.
Yeah, assuming you meet the state's definition of a farm.
Sorry.
Okay, so what are we going to do right now? Any other input on, what do you guys think about stabilizing the area between now and the filing of either the RDA or, you know?
You think there's enough growing season left to be able to do that?
Well, there's hardly any, so I think if we want her to sow, I mean, put down seed, she needs to do it now, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
in November, nothing's going to happen.
Well, and the horses would have to get out of there, otherwise it's a non-starter. It's
Yeah.
not gonna.
Exactly.
So you're saying that you can't have horses in a paddock?
Well,
that
we're
just have-
discussing we're discussing this now. I don't think we've made a decision.
Well, one thing Mickey said, and maybe you could start with this, is, you know, if you got it stabilized on the downstream end, you know, and so if she was able to turn the horses up to the upstream end to begin with, and then, you know, kept them out of that area, I don't know, I mean.
What do you point on that to what you're saying? I don't understand.
Well, and I may not be getting it
Right
correctly,
above the
but,
road, the driveway.
yeah.
There's, you know, basically you take the, you know, a certain, I don't know what the distance would be.
Well, it's where the
but-
shed is really, you know,
Yeah.
that section,
Yeah.
you know, and so I don't know if you went a certain distance up and
Oh,
you
I
said,
see.
let's get that area stabilized, because that's
Mhm.
downstream, you know, and it's
Do another
closest.
section,
So
another,
you're talking.
Yeah, at
about
another
here?
point, yeah.
break it up
That
into
area
3
is
pieces.
Well, break it up into
That's all.
however many, I don't know what is needed, how long you'd have to keep them off of it, I don't have that knowledge to say, you know, but if, I mean, and I was just kind of jumping on
something that Mickey had said, maybe you start with one end, you know, and get that
I guess,
stabilized.
I mean, I don't know, you know the water flow and all that much better than I do, but I was thinking since the healthier part of the stream is up here,
Mhm.
maybe the part, you know, continue that,
Mhm.
have it, this part be the part that's sort of off limits or stabilized. Because this is, once you get over this fence here, this was. the
Naturally
stream-
vegetated.
Well, it's more vegetated, I don't know if it was
Mhm.
naturally, but there were some trees there.
Mhm. Yeah, I was just jumping on the downstream, trying to see if you could get it before it gets into the wetland
So
below.
if we were gonna say that we want her to stabilize only a portion of the paddock,
Yeah.
would we allow her to use the other portion? I mean, would we allow her to segment off a piece that she could use and then not use?
I suppose so. I suppose we could require, I
Because
mean, we can do whatever, right? I mean, I'm just thinking though, also the shed is right there, down in this part
Mhm.
right now.
Yeah.
So would it be easier, I mean, I don't know. What you say made total sense, that
Mhm.
the part close, you know, this part should be the priority. On the other hand, it would be easier, I would assume, for her to
Keep the shed in there at the
Keep
moment.
the shed here at the moment and stabilize this area.
And there's enough room for the horses to come down?
See,
My memory of
I'm
the
just-
17 feet and what would need to be vegetated, the horses coming down and having to...
Right, so I'm thinking she continues, she leaves it here for now, the shed. And so, you know, everything, you know, north of this line here is stabilized and the horses can continue to do this. And I don't know, was there a gate over here? Can they get in?
So if I could just say, what I was going to suggest is
Yeah.
have her put a new fence here.
Okay.
And then
Vegetated.
just revegetate that, so you have the stream coming down, but then you have that filter
Yeah.
strip that we're talking at
Is that-
between some
So it's-
point in the road.
How substantial would that be? That's such a small segment of the
Is it possible to
stream?
do this and up here that just already started the vegetation, so make this more dense or have more types of plants that would be more effective so that two pieces could help
Well,
reduce the,
This
well,
was,
I don't know, I mean, there was some up there, but it wasn't much.
There's an old pond there that sort of filled in, I don't know if you saw that.
I will say,
so
because
I was just gonna say, just stop letting the goats graze. I mean, looked like something was grazing there, because it was
Mhm.
keeping the grass down. Because it wasn't mud, right? It was all
No,
green.
there was vegetation, but it
something-
wasn't,
Yeah, something was
substantial.
keeping the grass down. And as you go up here, it gets a little bit too rocky.
I will say, I did go on my own, and I hadn't pulled previous maps, which, so you know, it's been a big change, but going there without looking at the older maps, I saw it as a pre-existing paddock. It seemed like it had been there for a while. I was looking at exactly what you were saying, trying to figure out, I didn't think the shed made that huge of an impact. I can see where you're saying as they congregate more, because it did have a permeable bottom. It was just a three-sided, and that whole paddock was pretty much cleared out as it was. I didn't see it as having a huge impact. And when I was there, I was kind of looking at that same thing. Is there a way to mitigate it by where that stream leaves that area? Because I thought you kept it relatively clean. It's still going to have manure, and it's going to be worse. But so where it leaves that area, if there was a way to reclaim some land there and help build up that buffer. And I kind of walked up here a bit to see where it came in. I like the idea too, you know, if there's somewhere you can add here as well. But, you know, that was just my thought going there, again, not looking at the older maps, was, you know, would it be best just to mitigate at the end of that stream area rather than shutting down the full paddock?
So one concern though is that such a minor thing for her to have to do is that she just does that and never comes back. You know what I mean? It's not
Yeah, no, I
motivating.
know.
And that's something that Cheryl had suggested early on, you know, the first
Yeah.
visit, was it needed some sort of filter strip
It looks
here
like
and there.
It looks very man-made. I don't know what anybody else thought about it. It looked like somebody dug a trench.
Yeah, I think
It looked like they just dug a trench down to drain out.
Right.
Well, there's actually like there's a little holding area at the top of the stream, and then you can see this, a pipe that goes through the ground into that
Yeah.
man-made trench or whatever it is.
I think it was an old pond that was right there.
Yeah, and then it just kind of
Is
drained
the shed on
out.
this side of the street?
Yeah, it's on, I mean, it's a full paddock. You can see it.
The shed is right here.
Yeah.
Just from this picture, it looks like most of the property is on that side.
Right.
Why isn't the shed on the other side, so they don't have to cross?
Well, there's a number of different paddocks. I think, so I think she grazes them here for a few months, grazes them here for a few months. I think she
There's
moves
nothing to
around.
graze, Brian.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's a good point.
She had other things.
But I was
She
wondering.
said that the
She had other
roots and
uses.
stuff would be hard on the horses too.
Yeah. She
said
Said
what?
In some areas.
The what?
Some of the-
Tree roots.
That it was too
There
rugged.
are a lot of.
Well, she had a lot of
other animals too. She had pigs up here. I mean, there was, she had multiple uses going on here and a lot of animals.
Well, I know it wouldn't be convenient, but I would almost think if you move that shed further upstream, maybe there's less of a chance that the manure would be closer to the wetland area. I mean, the one thing that kind of struck me as I was driving out was like that huge marshy area to the right of the road. So I just couldn't help but think, okay, there is all this manure, and maybe it just like flows out and dissipates over there, but it's not too farther where there's a big wetland area. I'm just wondering, like, move the shed
Yeah.
farther up, let the
Yeah.
vegetation grow down, maybe filter it
Right.
out near the bottom.
So instead of making the line here, have her move it up to this end and make a line here, like.
Yeah,
And let this revegetate, or seed this perhaps.
maybe to filter it out a little bit more before it gets out in that general direction.
Because I think where the shed is the worst part.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Really.
down near the
So-
bottom.
By shifting the
Yes.
shed, you
And seeding.
you have a better chance of recovering,
Exactly.
fixing what the
Yeah.
worst part of it. But I like the idea that we would allow her to still use some of the paddock,
Yeah.
because
Those are all good suggestions.
Were we at motion to, how do I proceed?
Well, I guess I would probably recommend that if you're in agreement that you're comfortable with keeping the shed for now,
Well, we said.
somewhere. Yeah,
moving it
keeping
north.
it in that paddock for
Yeah.
now, but moving it north, or upgrading of the lower wetland. And I would come up with a distance, that you're saying generally, that you want to have at least 50 feet, or you want to have, minimum 25 feet, you want to have whatever distance you want. And I would say that you want it done by a certain period of time, and you want a request for determination or a notice of intent filed by a certain time. And if it's not, then you have to take, other action.
Okay. And what's the certain time?
That's up to you.
Well, I just have a clarifying question. Exactly why, how would it make it better by moving it up? Because, I mean, it's not that much further up, and if it's gonna be moved up, then what is that bottom buffer? Like, there's gotta be some calculation for how much that bottom buffer based on how much you move it up, if that makes any sense.
No, it's a good.
Well, I just see it as a temporary measure at the moment, and so it's temporarily allowing them to keep the horses on that side if that's
Right.
what some of the members are suggesting.
Yeah, this is all of this.
I don't know that it's
Yeah.
necessarily gonna be 100% effective, because we don't know whether they're gonna get much growth at this point, I just don't know. But
One of the things that we've done with other farm uses is we ask the USDA for recommendation, and they usually give us that distance. But one of the things that could be done sooner is, fence off that lower paddock. And I was going to say, at least a 20-foot distance between the paddock and where the road is. And that's a good starting point, and then find out what USDA would recommend for the filter strip.
Is there 20 feet between the shed and the driveway?
I don't know, but there can always be
It's
fencing.
probably across like 12, 14 feet maybe.
Yeah,
but
it's pretty
it'll be
close,
close,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, but as a starting point, that seems to make
Oh.
sense. And maybe
So what if she did that? That's a fairly minor thing, and she might just say, oh, well, then I just won't come back, right? I only have to keep the horses out of a few feet, seed that, and then I'm done. I mean, what would,
right, I don't see that as a permanent solution. I think it's just a quick temporary one.
rather, no, but
But-
she might not be motivated to come back, I guess, as the danger, or what do we do?
Well, that's why I was saying, you set up certain parameters of what you want to have done by certain dates. The request for determination being filed or a notice of intent being
Alright.
filed is one of them. And that if that doesn't happen, then you will take your enforcement action.
Okay.
And honestly, the reason I come last time and this time is just to work with you guys and figure out what the best solution is. And not to have a confrontational.
No, I don't think anybody wants that, but it's already at the point where the commission said they don't believe it's agricultural exemption, and she's going to fight that. So,
Yeah.
we're already at a confrontation.
Well, I think that, I think an RDA is a reasonable way to permit it, and there can be some changes, like there's some recommendations of, see if she can move the shed, filter strips. I think those are all.
Yeah, I have trouble that, I don't think we can permit it under an RDA. As I said, under the bylaw, I just don't see that happening.
There are only so many check boxes.
So maybe, the way.
I mean, so if she files an RDA, it sounded like from your point, her position was to file it to prove agricultural exemption, not to.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, maybe I misunderstood.
That's how I understood it.
I'm sorry. From all your discussions, I think those are all good recommendations. I think I can't speak for Jen, but it sounds like she's got some flexibility. She'd rather not move the shed, but it's on skids, it can get pulled or moved. I think she can reasonably have a filter strip there. It doesn't look like it's going to affect her ability to use the pasture. If we can accomplish that in an RDA, I think she'd be very happy to go do that and have you review that and condition it and show what the work is.
The filter strip part, I guess, is what I'm still stuck on. I was seeing that just as a temporary measure. I think what I envisioned longer term was a filter strip along the edge of the stream, not just a filter strip at the bottom.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that would accomplish.
What would the width of that strip be?
What's that?
What would the width of?
Well, I have to look at what DEP's
Because-
recommendation. So I mean, you can look at USDA, you can look at DEP's. I think DEP would have a minimum of 25 feet, but again, it's, it is sometimes dependent on slope, and it may be dependent on in other conditions if there's other areas that are vegetated. So in this case, it's fairly flat, but there's nothing that's vegetated. And it may be that I don't know. We need some more information on on the flow. I mean, we may have to have a better sense of what's happening with the flow there. It's a pretty big, it's a big hill. A lot of stuff comes down there.
It seems like it could be significant.
But she's got little pipes in there now. And the swale's not huge, so I don't. It didn't look like where the pipes are. There's a lot of erosion around it, so maybe it's not as much as it could be. I just don't know the conditions. But anyway, I don't see the bottom strip as being the end all, I guess, is what I
think the original
right,
discussion was that would be a start, and then eventually,
This is
so this would be,
temporary.
temporary, and then eventually the whole thing would get vegetated.
So let's try to resolve it. What do you guys think is reasonable as a temporary measure? Just the little portion south of the shed to fence that off and seed that immediately? Or does the shed need to be moved up somewhat? How far,
I think the shed should be moved. So the question is, how far up? Do you know the total length of that paddock?
The maps
I
might have
I don't know.
a scale
I don't know.
bar.
It's a shed, 200 feet, something like that.
So at least.
What's on the rest of this?
It's kind of arbitrary. I don't really have a sense of
I
what
know, yeah.
It'll take me a few minutes, but I could try and pull up maps.
She can't just move it 50 feet back.
No, her property line.
No, that's right. That's right. Her property line's right there. I mean, basically, there's no place she can move that shed that has a larger offset from that center swale.
Yeah. There was only a little nook closer to there was a little nook right here, down there where she could have pulled it back a little bit, but it wasn't really significant, and then you wouldn't be able to.
Can I throw in another thing in terms of moving it, and again, just noting, so the other thing the reason, when the complaint came in, the other part of the complaint was that it was too close to the property line.
Oh, okay.
So I also don't know whether permanently it can be anywhere within that paddock. That would, I don't know what the offset is from the property line. And the building inspector has said that it is something that requires a permit.
Right.
So she will have to figure out what that distance is, and so that might be something, Mickey, that, that needs to be.
So in theory, she could get a variance To pull that shed
Potentially she
closer to the
could, but
property
again,
line.
to get a variance, you have to show you have
Yeah.
no other place,
I
and
see.
the topography, you know,
Okay.
all the other conditions, you know, that would,
Right.
Okay.
kind of bring it in.
So, Maria suggested 50 feet of the southern portion of the stream, you know, move the shed and then seed the southernmost 50 feet.
You're talking both sides.
Yeah, of the southernmost, yeah. Is that a reasonable, or?
And she could continue to use the.
Yeah, I can't speak whether that's
Yeah.
a significant distance or not. You know, I guess my inclination is by, you know, it sounds like you want, you know, to manage her pasture and her operation, and so I guess my inclination is to go for the determination route, whether the agricultural exemption applies. And that way, you know, she can present all her data and all of her information and have that as a public meeting with that information. So normally, you know, if this were an agriculture exemption, sheds and the land under the sheds are exempt. That's how the rules work. So that, you know, a farmer can, you know, put up their shed or do related activities and not be subject to a Wetlands Protection Act.
Can they devegetate the stream?
Right, I think that would still be an issue, if we completely devegetated stream, even if she met the agricultural exemption. There would have to be some kind of management plan there. So,
I don't think that's correct. It would be if it were a new farm, she were moving in and, you know.
But she told us she just started the business. I mean, that's what she said. She just started this adoption rescue business, so it's a new activity. I mean, having animals is not an agricultural exemption, you know, automatically you have to meet those other criteria.
Because it sounded like it was a horse property in the past, it was never a farm. I mean, it was
Right,
just
it was
whether-
two
it was- I
pet-
mean, they may have had a
two pet
farm pond, they
horses.
may have had a bunch of other things, but it was
Right.
never ever considered a farm, it was just simply a horse property.
Correct. No, you're right.
So,
That's
you know,
right.
I mean, we don't need to continue to argue that. If she wants to fight that, she can fight that. I mean, right now, I would love to be able to just determine what she needs to do and what, you know, by when it needs to be done. And then she can decide whether she wants to file the RDA or the NOI. It's 50 feet, should I just make the motion? Or is that a
Sure.
motionable thing, or is it just a?
Yeah, I would make it a motion and get a vote on it. And I guess I would say at this point, what you'd be doing it under is a notice of violation. You know, that she put the shed in, you know, without a permit, that upon inspection, you know, you've also determined that the management of the paddock area is such that it's impacting the wetland, and that you want, you know, to have the shed moved temporarily until you can have further assessment of other alternatives, at least a minimum of 50 feet, you know, from the edge of the driveway, and that area be stabilized by seeding, you know, immediately by seeding it with, you know, winter rye and fencing it off. And that, you know, the determination and notice of intent, you know, be filed by a certain date. And I can try to look that up, you know, when our next deadlines are.
Okay. So I'll start talking in Babylon and we look up the
Yeah.
date.
Yeah.
All right, so I'd like to make a motion that the shed be moved and the southernmost 50 feet of the paddock in question be fenced off from the horses and reseeded with grass by...
Oh, so, well, you have a date that you want that to be done. That can be different from the filing date.
Oh, okay. So within 2 weeks or?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, the grass seed should be done probably within a week.
Before the end of the
So
growing
then
season.
within a week.
Yeah, within a week.
It's already the end of the growing season.
Yeah, it already is, but we haven't had a frost yet, so yeah, within a week. And
So
that
she's-
is-
Just to get the materials
Yeah.
and do the seeding. Okay, just for clarification.
Yeah.
And then we.
And that. Do I have to tag anything on if it's not done within a week?
Well, yeah, we take further enforcement
Okay,
action.
we would take further, if it's not done within a week, we take further enforcement action. Is that,
Yeah, so, that she would notify us that it's been completed, so that we know that it's been, her agreement to cooperate and
Yeah.
to comply with this
Okay.
notice of violation and the order that we're suggesting that be, requiring that she do it in. All right, so I didn't get all of everything because I'll have to get back on the tape. So you've got a week that she's going to move the shed and seed the area and fence off the area 50 feet, upgrade in front of the driveway.
correct, and then,
And the next part was, well, and I guess I was adding on, and she shall, agree, confirm to us her agreement, her willingness to comply.
her willingness to comply, do we need to check? Or-
Well, without the filing, we don't really have the right to go on the property, so, and we can't see it from the road, so
And if she
unless
never-
one of the neighbors,
And if she never files, then?
well, then you would take enforcement action, so.
Oh, but she could say in a week, you say, okay, I did it, I've seeded it.
No, and then you were gonna have the request for determination or notice of intent filed.
By,
to-
okay,
yeah,
so that's a
by-
separate
yeah.
motion. We'll do this one.
Okay, if you want.
We'll do that separate.
Okay.
So let's deal with the first motion. I make a motion that she move the horse shed such that the southernmost 50 feet of the paddock in question can be fenced off from the horses and reseeded with grass within 1 week, and that she give us her intent to comply and, or she tell us it's been done within a week. Right.
So, just for clarification, because I'm imagining a person who works full-time,
Yeah,
going, getting the seed,
yeah,
calling to get the
yeah,
get it moved.
yeah.
A week is, and then she's gonna hear about it tomorrow. I'm just trying to not set us up for her not to comply.
Well, this is the thing,
So
if you
weeks
want
seems-
it to be seeded, if you're gonna give her longer, I think it's not worth it to seed it, because it's.
No, I understand
getting
that the
cold.
growing season, I understand that piece, but I'm also just trying to give enough time so that she
Yeah.
has enough time to comply, because I mean, it may not be that difficult to get the seed, but to do all of it,
Right.
and she's gonna hear about it tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow morning,
Mhm.
just
Doesn't
a few
sound
more
very- Doesn't sound very practical.
Yeah, I don't know.
a few more days.
Maybe give her a longer
more-
amount of time to move the shed.
Well, then how do you
No,
seed it?
you need to have it moved to seed it, because you're gonna drag all along.
Oh, okay, so it's gotta go into the shed area.
So if we gave 2 weeks with a report back by our next meeting, saying that it'll be done within a week, because it has to be done within a week, then that seems more feasible.
Well, certainly getting the shed, I mean, I'm just thinking taking more than a week to seed it. I don't know that that would then be a meaningful thing to require the seeding like you're giving her. Right? I mean,
That's
it's
kind of the
The end
point.
of October, yeah, the point is to get the seed in before.
I know, before it gets too cold and it doesn't germinate, and
Yeah.
I understand that, but I'm also trying to, we're trying to work with her
Yeah,
and be practical, have it be a practical solution.
yeah.
No, I mean, if you give her the 2 weeks and, get it, have it reported, whether it's Jennifer or Mickey who reports back, then, I mean, she may be able to get it done sooner.
Right.
And you can say that in the letter, that, time is of the most importance because it's past the growing season. We're hoping the winter rye will help, and you don't want a continued violation. Every day you don't do it is a violation, So you don't want to have any continued impacts, as the weather's changing.
How about 10 days?
That feels more comfortable somehow.
Sure, the more feels more comfortable.
For her to,
10 days, not 10 business days, 10 days.
Yeah,
10
10 calendar days, so
Okay.
put it that way.
Okay.
Okay, 10 calendar days. Would anyone like to second it?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Can I add just a comment before you go on that? I've been doing wetland work 30 years. I just think the direction you're going is, from my perspective, very unreasonable. And I just think you're being overly aggressive for somebody who has a very, trying to do, a community service and trying to run this farm. And, I just feel like you're putting conditions on her that are going to be difficult. And, I guess I thought you were going to say, you file a notice of intent, file an RDA, but you're putting conditions on it that make it difficult for somebody like her in the position. And I just think, I would just urge you not to approve that motion.
It's hard. I tend to think we're so late in the growing season that I'd rather have her come back with an RDA or an NOI and actually talk to her and figure out a full plan. Because I could see the need to shut it down right away and try to reseed it right away and try to catch what's at the end of this year. But if she is going to go for the RDA, then it's agricultural land, which I'm not really sure if she can win that one or not. I would hate to enforce for her to try to move all this stuff out, only for her to get an RDA that it is agricultural land, and then she doesn't have to do that work, and she can go back to it the way it was. Honestly, I'd rather have her in, go through the whole thing, see if we can't figure out some way to change this, mitigate this, what she can do in the future, and then have her start making changes from there, rather than for her outlaying time and money to try to fix things now, only for us maybe to change that in the future, or find out that she doesn't need to do that. It's kind of where I fought, because I was cognizant to what Liz was saying. It's difficult because I know she works in Boston. She comes out. 10 days might work, but we talked about the rain too with CME. I mean, you might lose 4 days in between now that you can't do any work, and then she's up against it. It's a lot of pressure. I'd be more compelled just to invite her in to say, either go with the RDA or the NOI, and let's just start working it out from there. Rather than to try to impose something now. I know we have right to it, and there are some reasons for it. I'm just saying that's kind of where I'm falling into this.
I'm the only one here who hasn't visited the site, but it does sound to me from what everybody has reported that this isn't the best site for that kind of an enterprise. I don't think we're against what she wants to do. But it's difficult to try and do it there, at least this way.
Yeah.
I'd encourage you to go visit the site.
Yeah, I can give you her cell number.
I think she'd be willing to have you come out and look at it for yourself and just see what it looks like.
I think that particular strip, that piece where the shed is, makes it difficult, but the rest of the property, it's a compelling enterprise, if you will. Not sure that's the right word, enterprise.
One of the things I can, what I would, regardless of what you end up voting on, one of the things that I will suggest to Jen is to seed and mulch and cut off that lower area. It's very easy to, at least initially, put a wire or something very simple so the horses don't need the full fence, but they can have a wire. She can mulch that area, she can seed it. Basically, for this time of year, all you need is 3 consecutive days of 50-degree
Oh, we know we're going to have that next
soil
week.
temperature to get the winter rye to germinate. So usually, by the first week in November is sort of like your drop dead date. So there's time to get some seed, especially if you mulch it.
Right.
So I
then
think that's
what's
a way
your
to-
thought on getting her in with the RDA? Our deadline is next week for the November.
I think that's possible.
18th meeting.
But one of the things I really would want to do is speak to the USDA and get their take on what the filter strip width should be. And if they're willing to provide that quickly, we can do that. But otherwise, we're just guessing what the right distance should be.
Well, I mean, the easiest thing would be go back to one of the initial suggestions, which is to leave the shed for now and the southernmost portion, which is not very much, 10 feet, I don't know, fence that off and just seed that area for now.
To get it started.
Yeah. I mean, all
Well,
she has
I
to
kind
do
of
is
like it coming
put
from
the fence-
Mickey more than it coming from us in a way, but I think you need to convey to her our
I hear you.
concerns. I mean, again, I'm not speaking for everybody at this point, but with what Brian's saying, sort of trying to work with her, I mean, I think we do want to work with her. Nobody's looking to drive her out. That's her words. I know,
I really feel
she's
like-
starting a business without checking into it. That's not our fault.
I really feel strongly, though, that if she's not moving the shed, if it's just that short distance between the shed and the road, that 7 days is plenty. She just has to buy grass seed and sprinkle that, really, and put up a wire for the horses, and that's enforceable, you know, that, I just don't feel like that's very time-consuming or difficult to do. It's not making her make any major changes. If things did somehow turn around and she was, able to continue using the property as she's been using it, then that was a very minimal change.
So you say not to move the shed?
I'm not getting, I
So
don't know
the-
what
so
you guys
the
think. I'm
seven
not
days-
hearing that you
Yeah.
guys think that it is.
7 days would include moving the shed and.
No, now we're talking
planting.
about
Okay,
not
so if
moving the
we,
shed.
so if we're not moving the shed, then 7 days
It's plenty, I think, to
seems,
sprinkle grass.
seems
seed.
reasonable.
Mm.
And you're saying, I'm sorry, you're saying beyond the 10 feet that Mickey's talking about, you're talking about in a more extensive area?
No,
Oh,
we're
you're still
just
just
saying, fence off the area south of the existing shed. Leave the shed where it is, fence off the area south of it and seed that.
Which is
So
very
what's the
small.
value?
It's a very, very small area.
It's very small.
Yeah.
But what do you get from that?
I know.
That's the point.
So we need to make a decision here. Some people want the shed
Yeah.
moved, some people don't want it moved.
Is that a token mitigation? Is that all that is?
What?
Yeah.
Is that a token mitigation?
See, right, and then we're talking
Yeah.
about, well, so if we make her do something that's very easy, I'm not sure it's meaningful, that's the thing.
Well, I
And
think-
then we get the argument is do nothing, and that's not good either.
Well, I think I want to echo Brian's sentiment that, I want to give her a chance to maybe prove that it is agricultural. I mean, I just don't know the definition, and from what I've heard, I don't think any of us can put our finger on it, So giving her that opportunity, I think, is what I'm really focused in on. And
Oh, I thought that's
anything
what we
else
did
is-
last week.
Yeah, I thought, and
Last
I feel
meeting.
pretty clear on that, actually, because it says, I looked it up in the MACC handbook, and it says that the agricultural product has to be produced on the site. If they don't have that, then something like a supermarket is a farm, an animal shelter is a farm. Those are not farms. I mean, the intent of the law is to encourage actual agriculture where, agricultural products are being produced, and, this is different, and I have nothing against what she's doing. I think it's a great project. It's just not, it doesn't meet, I don't see any way in which it meets the agricultural exemption.
Yeah.
I guess part of my fear too with it was, if we ask her to move the shed, and she moves the shed 50 feet, and then she comes in with an NOI, and we go back and forth, and it turns out, oh no, the shed has to end up being over here, or you can't have the shed
Move
at
it
all.
again, yeah.
I hate having her do work just for us to come in and be like, oh, well, now we're going to decide that we're going to do this instead. I'd rather leave it in situ. I mean, I don't want it to get worse, and I can understand arguments for asking her to do something in between, but I'd almost say, let's come in, let's figure out exactly what the plan for this property is fully,
Great.
and go with that rather than
Okay.
having her put any work into temporary measures.
All right, I make a motion that she leave the shed in place and, but fence off everything in that paddock south of the fence and reseed it within 7 days and,
South of
So
the shed.
what?
South of the shed.
South of the shed, yeah, reseed the area south of the shed within 7 days and inform us of her willingness to comply and after she has complied.
We'll take her off on myself as well.
I think if we don't have the area, the amount defined, saying 10 feet.
Immediately south of the shed. I'm not gonna
Well,
say 10
I think it was
feet.
Carol's point, was that if Mickey was gonna do some of this research, is that what you were saying before, Carol? That if we don't really know how much to plant, just saying 10 feet, why not say 15 or 5?
No, I'm not saying, I'm giving a landmark as opposed to a distance. It's like
Okay.
the southernmost border of the shed.
Yeah.
She fenced that off, and all of that gets seeded.
It may turn out that I come back and say it needs to be, 25 feet or 30 feet, I don't know whatever it is. So the distance south of the shed, it's probably about 15 feet or, I don't know, something like that. I don't know if that's enough or it should be more, but that'll be at least.
Well, we're
a
starting
start.
temporary now.
We're talking about
Yeah.
temporary
Right.
start
Yeah.
of
So I think we can
stabilizing the site.
expect- Yeah, it's just south of the shed. Anybody like to second that motion? No? 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 Maria, what do you want?
She seconded the other motion.
Yeah, I mean, I already seconded the motion.
Oh, you feel like it
So,
should be.
yeah.
Is there anybody other than Maria and me that thinks that it should be, the shed should
I
be
still
moved?
keep
Well, it was
thinking of
hindsight's
this
deal. I'm
phrase,
gonna go back. So maybe it should be
token
moved.
mitigation, and I'm not sure what it would really accomplish.
Okay, so you're a no, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, not move the shed, or not even do any kind of
Well, if
stabilization?
you're not gonna move the shed,
Yeah,
and you're only going to rehabilitate a few feet of the thing, you're not really solving the problem. You're not establishing a path to
No,
correct it.
these are all
it's
temporary
just temporary,
measures.
and we don't know
This
that it
is,
does
this is
nothing.
just a
We're
stopgap because the work has been done already.
Yeah,
So what can we do immediately to make it better?
exactly.
And this is by no means the end of it.
A little.
Right, very little, it sounds like,
Yeah,
what you just said.
yeah.
I mean, is that worth it?
I don't know. I mean, maybe it is, and so I'd rather give it the benefit of the doubt and say, I mean, how hard is it to drop some grass seed? I mean, I don't know.
I want to work with her, and I want to make it work. But, you know, I don't see it as a hazard of her having to move the shed, because the shed shouldn't have been there. I mean, she's done it after the fact. And so, you know, I don't want to say that that's a hardship for her to have to move the shed. I mean, that's the predicament that she put herself in. So,
I understand that, that's fair, but.
you know, and I want to work with her to, you know, we'll do it together, but, you know, I don't see what the problem is in moving the shed. I mean, maybe 10 days is not long enough for her to do both. Then maybe we give her a little more time, but.
In order to move shed, you know, obviously you need to have someone come in with a tractor.
Yeah.
Right.
See
And
if they
she
can move it.
implied that her neighbor could help her with that, and that she made it sound like it wasn't that big of a deal.
It's, again, it's not on a foundation, but it would be no further from wetlands.
Right.
It's a, you know, it's just a narrow.
But
Right.
we're putting it in a less muddy area.
Right, well, and then we're also, it's just giving us more space to stabilize. It's not, we're not trying to get it away from the stream, we're just talking about giving us more space south of the shed to stabilize. But, you know, I'll go either way, it's 11:15. We gotta stop at some point.
Oh, gosh.
Would someone like to make another motion? Do you have another idea? Or do you want to continue to discuss move versus not move the shed?
Well, I keep getting Brian's point stuck in my head, is that, you know, we make this motion, we say, okay, you have to do this,
Yeah,
but then she's gonna go and file for whether or not it's an agricultural exemption.
right,
We don't know which way it's gonna go,
right,
and I think to most of us, it seems like it's not an exemption.
yeah.
I mean, I've read through everything, I can't see anywhere where it would be.
Yes.
And it's a great project.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
but
what
there's
if it
still that
does?
chance,
Yeah,
right?
what if it
I
does?
don't know how
Yeah.
slim it is, but I just, to Brian's point, like if she moves it, and go through all these things, is it I don't know, like an undue hardship? It just seems like maybe we should wait until we go through that process.
And even if it's not the RDA, if it is an NOI, I'd like to give her the option, which is what we usually say, you know, it's really not for us to say you should be doing this, you should be doing that. Maybe she comes in with a plan saying, look, I'm not going to go with the RDA, I am going to follow an NOI, but I'm going to propose that we move this here, and I want to do this, I want to do a strip
okay.
here.
Okay, so those of you who
Let her-
don't think she should move the shed, well, I'll make the motion again and see if anybody is willing to second it. I make a motion that she leave the shed currently where it is, fence off that portion of the paddock south of the shed, and reseed that within 7 days. And indicate her, you know, call us and tell us about her willingness to do it, and tell us when it's done. Anybody willing to second that, or is that
Okay,
too
so
much?
she
Too much
reseeds
asking to
it,
do? What?
she reseeds it,
Yeah,
and then it's good for the winter,
yeah.
and then we're continuing through the
Yeah, we're continuing
spring.
through, she does the
And
RDA
then
and-
basically well, she has to move it, it's right next to, then she goes through it and moves it,
But she's not moving anything now.
right.
We don't know what's gonna come up.
Right.
I would then file a permit for you to review. And just,
So do you guys not, will, I mean, no one wants to second that, what's the
I second
problem
it.
with, okay.
I
All in
second
favor?
Dan wants a second.
I'd like to see
All in
that.
favor? Aye.
I know what you're saying. It's just
Either
I
fix
feel like
fix the problem, don't just pussyfoot around.
We can't fix the problem, it has to go through the RDA and an NOI. We can't do that tonight, this is temporary we're talking about.
So maybe that isn't a meaningful thing to do. To
Okay,
do
so
a
you-
temporary token.
Are there any ayes on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Two, just two? So you guys are thinking not do anything now, is that right?
I am, I'm leaning that.
Yeah.
I
It's
just,
like, what's the point, right? That's what you're.
yeah, the plan might change. I don't want her to go through the expense and then, it ends up being an entirely different plan. I'd rather get her in, figure out what the end game is, like what the entire plan is, and go with that rather than
Okay, how do
making
we
her do
ensure that she
something
comes
and
in?
then come in to figure out what she has to
Yeah,
do.
Brian, how do you ensure she
She
comes
comes
in?
in.
What's that?
How do you ensure she comes in?
That's a very good question, isn't
you
it?
asked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
why
yeah.
I'm here.
No, I know,
She
but
doesn't.
I guess the point is, do you want a timetable? Again, it's after the fact. She
Sure.
didn't ask permission, now we're in this predicament that
Right.
you're here till 10 of 11 trying to figure out how to handle it. You don't want to have this go on forever.
Yeah.
But she
it's
she
gonna-
wants to run the business, and she wants to have the business as a going concern in Bolton. So she may be willing to come talk with us.
She already did. She is willing. But do you want to set up a time frame that you want to have a filing in?
Right.
Because she's already built something that you're saying is jurisdictional, and you want to get the plans.
Right.
And do you think a request for determination is going to be enough?
No, personally, I think I would go to the NOI. But, she's an individual citizen. If she wants to try the RDA and she wants to try to prove her case, I'll listen to what she has to say. And maybe I'll change my mind. Everything I've read and looked up, I don't think I will. But, that's an option open to her. Or she goes directly to the NOI and maybe she's proposing a completely different plan than what we see right now, or that what we're even thinking. And maybe it's a better plan. Maybe we look at it and say, wow, that's a great way to go.
I'm just gonna say that the fencing off south of the shed and putting down some grass seed is a very small time and expense and probably has some benefit. I don't know how much, but probably does, so that's what.
If I can just say, I know that you're all deciding that. I'm just going to recommend that you do that anyway, whether you vote for it or not.
Okay.
That it seems like a good, reasonable temporary measure. So I know there's discussion, but it seems like that's something that's doable and put something in place because she did put a shed there without coming to her. So I think that's something that I will suggest that she go ahead and do.
And while you're suggesting that it doesn't mean that it may not move.
I understand. I understand.
So there's like two pieces. Yeah.
Okay, so again, the real reason that we were having the meeting was to follow up and to see if we had a recommendation. So do you want to make a motion? And in that, do you have a timetable that you think we want to put in place?
Make a motion for what? I've tried about 6 times.
No, file a request for determination or notice of intent by a certain period.
We definitely want to put a time frame on that.
Yeah.
We want to start the
Okay,
process.
you want to make the motion?
Well,
And we're still, you guys don't want to require the seating and the fencing on, even though he's going to recommend it. Her own representative.
I don't know if she'll do it, but I will
And you
make
don't
that
want it.
suggestion.
Okay.
Maybe we don't need to.
Make that again?
Yeah.
I'm going to make the
We
same
haven't
motion
not
again.
made it yet.
I'm going to make that same motion once again, that she leave the shed where it is, fence off everything in that paddock south of the shed, and reseed that area within 1 week. Let us know of her willingness to do so, and after she has done it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is that 3 of us? Just 3? That's not enough, right? Just 3?
No. I need 4.
Next step.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, what will be the motion to compel? I would make a motion that we recommend to, or that we inform Ms. Vickery that the commission would like her to appear before the commission with either a request for determination or a notice of intent on her property on or before our November What's the second meeting in November? 17th?
18th, I think.
Sorry. Before our November 18th meeting, will be subject to further enforcement?
What are you gonna enforce?
I don't know. It's a very good question.
Well, I can get to that later. since we're
Yeah,
figuring that out.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so we're giving her to the 18th to
To file an RDA or an
Yeah.
NOI and appear before us so we can move things
Wait,
forward?
all right, that's not clear to me. So you want her filing and appearing before you with the application's different?
So file, we were
So your next hearings, you've got one November 4th. It's too late to hold a public meeting or a hearing.
Okay.
Based on our, legal notice requirements. The 18th of November, you could hold something, you'd need your application in by October 29th.
I really don't think I can reschedule that.
I don't have the dates.
So
for
what if we just said
December.
December 2nd? December 2nd's our first December one.
Well, again, are you talking about a meeting or are you talking about the filing? So you want to have,
Oh, filing. So for us to take up the filing in that meeting, it would need to be filed by,
I don't have a date for that because I haven't worked backwards, but.
I gotcha.
Let me see, I can tell you
It's
now.
Thanksgiving weekend there too.
so it's the weekend before, Thursday before.
Wait, that is open. So, December 2nd. It'd have to be submitted by the 12th, November 12th.
Do you think that would be doable?
It's doable. The only piece that I really would like to do is get the USDA folks to give some recommendations.
And are you saying that different than NRCS?
Yeah, same group, yeah. Natural Resource Conservation Service is part of USDA, so. I'll try to be whatever your schedule is, if you want it by mid-November, I think we can do that.
Okay. So, make a motion that we require Vickery of 539 Wannaquatic Hill Road to file either an RDA or NOI by November 12th, hoping. Or be subject to, further enforcement of.
What, though? You don't even think there's...
What? No, I'm not saying there's no, I just want to know how she plans to deal with it. Let her come up with the plan.
Okay, anyone want to second that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
How many is that?
We get 4. 5.
You got your marching orders?
I get it. I will talk to her also about whether she can do some temporary erosion control. All right, we done?
Yeah.
Good night.
I just have some bills. If you want to go through them or you want me to just pay them and I can email you and tell you?
That's really late, we got it.
Okay. I also had, and on the bill just was a request to release money to Weaver, 23 Deer Path, and my recommendation is to release that, which you've already issued a certificate of compliance on. But it was 1 year, past the planting season that they put the plants in. And I checked the site out yesterday, so I think it was like $2,559.50 if I remember exactly. Some things like stick with me.
So that needs a motion, or we just...
Well, it's on the bills,
Okay.
so I'll just put it through. I can let you know what I put through, which is I've got a bill. Well, you want to just sign it while you're getting wrapped up and closing? It's for Fishire Dam from our engineering consultants, and
Oh, and me, reimbursement for a small amount of money for getting some keys made for the gate at Bower Springs. And training for Liz, so. I did have on here, in case we got to it, which we didn't, Century Mill was looking for money, but I don't have that on the same one, so I'll just hold that one back. So we can just sign it there. And we're done with that one. So you want to adjourn then? Sorry, did you want to adjourn?
Yes.
Wait,
so we
can we
don't
talk
need to-
Tennessee Gas Pipeline? It's, I think, which is kind of important, because I was really, really shocked about the town selectmen.
What?
Their comment was that they're not going to comment on why we shouldn't have the pipeline right now, because they thought it would get lost in their sauce, and they're waiting to do so later in the process. Everybody I talked to that really cares about the project said they were a little upset by that, because they think, and I think, that at every single point that we can interject, we should. Saying the town of Bolton would be lost in the sauce, I thought was a little insulting. I understand they're going to get 1 million individual letters, but an actual municipality submitting something, you would think they would actually read it. So it seemed like they really didn't care to interject right now. And there are towns that have sent multiple pieces in already.
I know, so I think you guys should just get that letter ready and send it yourselves. And get our comments in, and maybe the Stop the Pipeline group will get their comments in, and I don't think we should wait on that.
No.
So I know Liz had thought that it needed a little bit more flow to it. You haven't had a chance to work on it. Is that something you could work on a little bit more, Liz, do you think?
I'm happy to look at it more too, yeah.
Yeah, when I looked at the version that I got, it looked like it needs another hour or so of just
Maybe some
refining.
cleanup, yeah, it reiterates things too. Will everybody have a chance to look at it? I mean, I don't know if anybody wants to comment, write
I
things
gave a
in.
couple comments, I don't know.
Oh, did you send it to me?
I think so, yeah. Just I thought, like, the flow was the major thing for me,
Yeah.
but I thought I captured all the points really well.
It's getting there, it was really ugly.
But so just to get it
Slowly but surely, we're
finalized, I
getting
guess,
it
you know,
there.
is everyone comfortable then if somebody was to just finalize it, you know, that we get it sent out?
I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we put
So-
something together, then we'll
So
send
I
a
just don't
final
know your
draft
time
everybody.
frame. Then. I know I'm not gonna be in the office at all tomorrow, and
Okay.
then Thursday I'm in, but I won't be in on Friday, so I don't know, you know, that I'm gonna get much time to it. So I don't, I've only had a few things to do,
Yeah.
so I don't know if either one of you feel like you can get it done. That's, I mean, we have to kind of, I think, push to get it done. And if you're too busy at work, I don't know.
I can I can get you something by Thursday. I can go through it again tomorrow, if everybody will have a chance to look at it though. That's, I don't know how crazy you are.
I can look at it after you look at it.
Yeah,
But I didn't know that, because my understanding was that that was the final. When I looked at it, I thought,
It was as far as I was as far as I could have
Yeah.
gotten with it on Friday. I didn't have time to do anything more. There was that's all we've gotten. As far as comments, again, Heinz had just had whatever general comments, but I didn't hear anything else. So that was where it was.
all the
Okay.
points are there, it just needs to be chiseled.
yeah, yeah, and some of the
Wordsmithing.
things
Yeah.
get reiterated, yeah, and anybody who wants to take a look at that, it's great writers. But yeah, I'm happy taking a look at it tomorrow and at least get you something back by Thursday. Because we need to do, I mean, if we got a final draft and we sent it around to everybody and everybody said they were fine with the final draft,
Then I would get it out on Monday.
sounds fine to me.
I mean, that'd give
Sounds like
people the
that.
weekend anyway. If you could, I just need to get it out to everybody.
Yeah, so I'll try to clean it up a little more.
And just if for some reason you're not before the end of the day for me,
Yeah.
you know, then just let me know and I can check my email from home or something, you know, and send it out.
Yeah,
But, you know, if I don't know, I usually don't.
yeah, no, I understand.
All right. I'm just going to do the backup right now. Okay. So
I'd like to adjourn.
Okay.
Yay.
I'm leaving.
All right. See ya. Thank you.
I'm just trying to work hard.